sounds that we.
Good morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 14th day of December 2023, and I want to welcome you to our show today. Thank you so much for coming here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, but in normal Brandenburg News Network style, we've been under attack here for a couple of days, and in Brandenburg News Network style, we are in fact having to punt a little bit. So Dr. Andrew Huff is here today, and we're going to try to get the microphones working, but like normal, this has been a weird week for, let's see if you can get it on here a minute. Is it working? There we go.
Yeah, I had to step away from my computer because of the feedback. Let me fix this feedback loop real quick and turn the sound off my computer, and I think I'll have this working.
Okay, no worries. I'm just going to continue to talk and get this started. And this is about normal for Brandenburg News Network. We've been under attack here, seriously, for I don't know, maybe a week or so, and it's overcomable, but it's one of those things that we're having to do some odd things, because not only was our tech department able to see that we were shadow banned multiple times this week. They can see things in the attacks going on behind the servers, which is really kind of funny to see. You know, we do get hired to do cybersecurity every once in a while, and we're actually pretty good at it, quite honestly. So there have been times where we've seen 10,000 hits or attacks. At one point it was all coming from North Korea. It's usually coming from overseas, but at any rate, it's kind of amusing to us, because it's like taking a bad situation and trying to make the best out of it, and doing the unusual to keep things going. How's the sound going?
I think we're good. I think I solved the feedback problem.
There we go. Okay, so we're going to do this a little differently. So we might have a little bit of a delay. I'll try not to step on you here, but we'll see. So on the video, I'm talking to Dr. Huff on the phone, and the video's playing, so there may be a little bit of a weirdness between the delay there, but we'll see. So how are you this morning?
Oh, pretty good. I mean, I just spent 30 minutes battling this microphone issue, and sometimes I don't know whether it's my ineptitude or whether it's actually someone screwing with the StreamYard. It's interesting. I've done over 250 or probably 300 interviews now, and StreamYard seems to be the platform that's the easiest. They hack the easiest. So for whatever that's worth, Zoom seems to be hacked the second amount most, but the StreamYard app, for whatever reason, seems to be the most vulnerable to hacks.
Yeah, and by design, you know, we're all doing what we can to punt and move forward with what we're doing. But you know, it's kind of an interesting. I could go in a lot of different directions, but there's a way that I can go to multiple platforms the way we're doing it right now. But with or without it, we're going to keep going forward, and that's honestly why we created Brandenburg News Network. If I just want to go on Brandenburg News Network and go on live, I can do that and say, you know, to heck with Rumble. Rumble was down twice this week, and it went down right after the little bit of a meltdown that happened on BNN on Monday with Chuck Richard, and he's out there punching in every direction right now, because it didn't go the way I think that he wanted it to go. But the thing of it is that what's really sad is you can't have, if you're going to agree to get onto a platform and talk about a subject, you have to be determined that we're going to work out the difficulties or have a civil discussion, not just come on and absolutely not let the other person talk. And I find it to be incredibly rude when somebody does that. It's just incredibly rude. And it tells me right there that they're not interested in pulling this country together at all. It becomes a Jerry Springer moment where they just want to basically be verbally abusive. And all I can see is, quite honestly, all I could see is unsubstantiated accusations, and that's not the way that we deal with things. The other thing is that anybody that brings up CPS as trying to instigate causing problems within a family, the family is the holy grail, and you do not attack. I don't care what your opinion is, you do not attack that a family and or even mention something like that, hoping someone will go after this person to silence them, to put their families in jeopardy. I can't agree with that. And to me, that's one of the lowest blows a person can, that's like low level bottom feeder behavior right there. When you go after families, when you go after kids and that sort of thing, that is bottom feeder stuff. And I'm not okay with that. If people want to apologize for making maybe a bad judgment call, then we can talk. But when you go after families in order to cause problems or destroy the family, that's an unforgivable problem right there for me. So anyhow,
so is there a specific example that you can refer to recently?
Yeah, my Monday morning guest who went after somebody's family and said the guy said an F word in a meeting, and basically alleged that kind of a person is a person who needs to have CPS called on them to take their children away for saying the F word, and it's like in a meeting. And I'm like, that's an unsubstantiated claim. It's a claim to harm a family because somebody swore. And I don't care what people say. I don't care the words they use. They have that right to say it. And I have the right not to associate with them if they do say it, or to associate them, but it is our choice to do that. But protected speech, if somebody wants to say the F word, the whole society says the F word every 5 words out here. So, to say something like that and then have an allegation that they're abusing their children to the point of calling CPS or instigating calling CPS on them is out of bounds. That kind of nonsense is what's destroying our nation. And I'm sorry, if you're too much of a snowflake to deal with that in a political realm, then it's maybe time for you to get out of that political realm, because people have the right to say, we don't have to like it, but then you don't have to go and participate either. If you're so offended by something that is commonplace, then maybe you're not worthy to be in the fight. Because if we want to sit there in our little echo chambers where everything is perfect, then that's fine. Go do that. I'm okay with that. It's your choice. But if you're going to get into the horrific things that happen in our society, like child trafficking, like the things that all of us have been into fighting for a long time, you're going to see and hear things that are not comfortable. And you don't go after people who are fighting these issues. If you can't stand the heat, then you better get out of the kitchen. And I do feel that way about it. I really, really feel strongly about it. So with that said, that's my point and my issue with this.
Well, so from what I gather from how you explain this, the other aspect is, so was this group of people, were they all allied politically? Were these people all on the right, or was this a diverse?
Nobody's allied politically. You go to these meetings and not one of them are allied politically, but they should be. But this was one of those things that if somebody says the F word in a meeting, then I guess if you're too much of a snowflake to listen to that, that's fine. You can express your opinion on it. But to go to the next step to call, to instigate calling CPS and accusing them of being child abusers is out of bounds. If that's the case, then 90% of the people on the planet would have the right to go after them. That's as hysterical as what Whitmer signed into office or into being a law, which is, it is smashing pumpkins is okay to take people's to make that a misdemeanor into a felony and take their guns away. That kind of hysterical stupidity because it's stupid. That was a stupid comment that was made, to make a jump from saying the F word to saying they're child abusers and taking their kids away. That is stupid. And I would put a person that says something like that on par with the intelligence level of Gretchen Whitmer, honestly. Now, if they want to apologize for making a stupid call, okay. But until that time, low IQ situation happening there, I'm afraid.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that those types of discussions and accusations, assuming that this meeting was around some other more important issue, just sort of derail the conversation. So you can never really focus on the real issues. And that's one of the bigger problems that we see taking place in all branches of governments, local community meetings. And that's sort of the same story that happens you see in Congress. And maybe some of that's intentional. When people try to play those kind of games, maybe they're trying to derail the conversation from something meaningful taking place. Maybe it's a political tactic or a ploy to get under somebody's skin so that they disrupt the meeting in some way. Sometimes there can be multiple motives for those types of actions. And the real issue we have in this country and within the state of Michigan is we're losing our ability to have civil conversations and legitimate disagreements, which are productive in solving our policy problems.
Right. And going after people personally. And so when he was on last week, somebody came on the chat and said that he's sleeping around on his wife. And I said, that's not okay. That's not okay to say that, because you are providing, it's only accusations, but that seems to be the MO of the entire Republican Party. There's no civility there. There's no stick to the issues. They go into political character assassination just because they're doing it for control instead of I don't really care who's in control at this point in time. If they love the United States of America, I'll go back to shoveling crap in my barn. I'm good with that, but you don't go after people personally, and you certainly don't do it without providing sourcing for it. And, so I find it to be a very low blow, and it's not okay. You can't tell me that you care about the children of this nation and put something like that out there. You can't convince me of it. So an apology from my Monday guest to the children of said political person needs to happen.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think some of these issues, if you look at what's happening right now within our party, the Republican Party, there's no leadership. And, you have really two factions. You sort of have the DeSantis faction, at the national level, and the Trump faction. And Ramaswamy's probably getting more of a following, at least from the presidential level. And then you look at the state level in our state, it's in complete shambles. And I don't know if this is by design, a bunch of outside influences, but, really what we need within the state level of Michigan and then at the federal level is we need better leadership of the party.
Or abolish the party.
Yeah, and never in I've observed a lot of what you just said myself, is that there's a lot of attempting trying to control the party from elected members in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, trying to control state and local politics. And really, that's not a good way to lead, okay? So I served in the military. I was trained in leadership. I was also groomed to be a leader in academia and the government. Sat through all sorts of formal training, then actually was a leader of corporations, nonprofits, these kind of things. And it's a much better tactic as a leader to inspire and motivate people to accomplish your mission. And this is what we always talked about, in discussed the different leadership styles when I was in the military. If you can inspire people and motivate them, they are going to be much more effective, much more happy, and much more productive in their daily duties. And we're just not seeing that in the U.S. Senate from any of the Republican senators. We're seeing that from only probably a handful of members of Republicans in the House. And really, we need someone at the national level to step to the plate and provide that inspiration and motivation instead of making it negative, dirty politics of we're going to get back at each other. I'm going to have control of this, because what that doesn't do? That doesn't help us fundraise. And one of the major problems that the Republican Party is having, in our state at least, and I'm guessing, I'm hearing in other states this is some of the problem, nobody wants to donate to our party. And, you have the high wealth people that will dump a bunch of money into stuff, but nobody wants to dump money into the party. And you have these state politics that are all in disarray in different states across the nation. you have to ask yourself why. Well, it's a failure of leadership, because what we should be doing is we should be organizing, we should be collecting better data, we should try to have more civil debates and discussions and quit going after each other, because only until we do that are we going to be able to beat the left. Because, you know, when I was a young man, I was about the most conservative Democrat to be. I was pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. I was in the military. I was just left enough to be a Democrat, and I used to believe back then that the government could solve problems. You know, and then I grew up and I became more wise and realized that the government can't solve most of our problems. But from being on that side when I was younger, and I was part of the Obama machine back in 2007, 2008, I hate to admit it, but they are well organized. It's a well-oiled machine. They're collecting data, and they don't engage in these types of fights internally. And the reason why they're crushing us is because they have their technology is 8 to 10 years ahead of us. Their organizational skills are better. I think nationally, you know, if you look at the types of personalities of people who are in the left or right, on the left, they tend to be more social. They tend to be more hive-minded compared to people on the right, where we tend to be more independent and we want to stand our ground. And we have those personality characteristics working against us when we try to organize. But we have to understand that to win the most important races at the state level and at the federal level, we have to get better organized. We have to collect better data, and we have to fundraise, because it's a simple fact: the candidates that collect or raise the most money typically win races. And if you look at this and you look, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican, the person who spends the most wins the most. And until we start spending on races, we're not going to win.
Right. Well, and that's what's wrong with our entire system, is that they're basically bought and paid for. And so the whole structure is never going to be good at this point in time, because we've got too many people that are contributing and companies that are contributing and these dark money PACs and such, so that even if you have good candidates that are good fundraisers, we can't outraise them, nor can we outspend them. So right now in Michigan, we've got, you know, all of our oligarch families here. And, you know, the one at the top of the list would have to be the DeVos family, where they are literally buying our politics. And because the rest of us are so off par with what they can do through dark money and PACs, we don't have a voice. They're giving us an illusion of a choice on who they are approving for us to vote for. But they are absolutely running this. And you can look at what happened with the governor's race. Okay. So DeVos has got behind Tudor Dixon, who was a lousy candidate to begin with, you know, from a globalist family. And you know, you put a child in that position, you're going to get a child's outcome. And so at the last minute, they pulled the support, and you can only look at that and say they were really behind keeping Whitmer in place. This is not about having two choices. It's a uniparty, and they're working together to subvert we the people. And it's real easy to see when you do look at those findings. I am absolutely for abolishing all political parties and have a different way. I mean, we don't even do a competency test or a background test on these people. And right now, Christina Caramo, all she does is hires felons. I mean, you look around her, and pretty much everybody around her has got a felony. And so not only either she did it on purpose or she's stupid, because it's like you could never run a company by putting felonies in those key positions, especially somebody who's got 10 counts of wire fraud over money. There's so many financial crimes that are listed there. It's like I don't think it's repairable at this point in time. And we need a hatchet person to go in there and start cutting deep until we get the criminality out, because all it is right now is a large criminal money laundering organization, and it is well oiled.
That's interesting, you know, and I've seen the accusations and the claims and some of the documentation of this, and I'm new to Michigan Republican politics. You know, I moved back here in, I guess, 2016, and then I was back and forth between here and California for work. Then I came back to the UP, and then that's when I got back active in Republican politics. So I'm sort of new to what's going on at the state level, and from being a new person coming to look at it, I look at it as just being a toxic mess.
It is.
And you know, whether or not Christina's been able to, you know, select good personnel. She's obviously, from my experience, she's made some bad selections or poor choices with personnel and out-of-state relationships. And I think that comes from a place of desperation. I think, you know, I do believe that she's trying to make things work. But, you know, I look at this from a business perspective or a management perspective. Has she been effective in the role? And the answer there is no. And so if it's her job to raise money and to get state and local candidates funded and be a synergistic person that helps grow the organization, she's failing. And one of the things that I've seen as a newcomer to the state politics level is that, I hear this, so I'll give the two perspectives. So the people in the Christina camp argue that old Republican politics were a swamp, that it's dirty, it's corrupt, it's the DeVos family, it's these other high wealth individuals in the state. Okay, that's their perspective, and I'm going to go with make the position that their view of the world is accurate, right? And then you have the people that are making the people that are making the counterclaim that she's corrupt, she's hiring criminals, it's a money laundering organization. And I'm going to go with the assumption that that's correct as well. The big problem here is that, so if you look at whatever the truth is in the middle, and once again, is she being effective at the job? And I don't think so. And that's the problem. And what a good politician has to understand, someone who leads a party, is that sometimes you have to make deals. Negotiations are part of the deal-making process, because you have to realize that, if you send the ship down, you tank the ship, we all suffer. And, having a scorched earth policy, my way or the highway, at a leadership level is not a good way to be successful for the state and for the local races. And to the extent that it actually overlaps with federal races, which it's not supposed to a large degree, it's problematic. And, I've never seen anything like it. I think it's completely crazy. I came to Michigan, I get into Republican politics in the state. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a war going on internally in the state within Republican politics. And what that enables, the real problem there is that enables the left to steamroll their agenda over us. And then you have to ask what outside influences are stoking this conflict within our state, because we're a swing state at the national level, and that's probably how the globalist people look at it. That's how the big money people, the DeVos family, are globalists. They make all their money off of China. And, that's when I started digging into this and some of the harassment that I was experiencing up here in the UP, one of the companies I was doing was the Fox Motors company. That's owned by the DeVos family. Okay, and they're working with Governor Whitmer on that. And then, I started digging into the DeVos's, and I didn't know a ton about the DeVos because I never cared. I dig into it, and all their Amway products are made over in China. All their parts for all their businesses are made over in China. So, it's really strange that we have a Republican family in the state that's so powerful. They say that they're Republican, but they really don't align with any of their constituents' values. What they are is big business. They're a special interest. And I think the DeVos family is probably one of several different wealthy families in the country that are trying to influence our state politics, and especially on the Republican side, and we're all losing. And I think maybe the strategy is just to keep us unorganized, to keep us in disarray, typical psychological operations, so we can't ever be effective as a party.
I agree. I would agree with that. How can you possibly say that they're pro-American and they're over getting all their products produced in China, and then also Nature Boy and Girl there, which is the Prince family as well as the DeVos family that kind of merged to have this little kingdom going on there with like large money. This is big money, guys. And you look at Nature Boy and Girl there with all these supposedly good, clean products and healthy living crap, and they've got 4 facilities here, Graham, that are here producing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in this state, and not just in the state, in the Grand Rapids area. They just built another large one out there by the airport within the last year or two. And so, we should all be asking, and these are the people that are buying our politics. So we have a big problem here, huge problem.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up. So what's happening too at the international level with the pharmaceutical companies, because all these pharmaceutical companies use the same ingredient precursors as they use in vitamins and health food products. One of Amway's biggest lines is a health food line. I think it's called Neutralite. I might have that one incorrectly, but if you go look it up, Amway has a huge health products line. I'm guessing that's what you're probably referring to, that they're making more of this product. But the money behind it is the same money that's in the pharmaceutical industry. So the people that make the precursors to make vaccine ingredients are the same people that make the precursors for the vitamin products, the health products. So really what you're seeing here is a sleight of hand. They're moving all their money out of the investments out of the pharmaceutical world into the health products world. But it's the same people, same money. one market's drying up, so they're just moving the money somewhere else. That's good, smart business. But if you look at then how that's influencing global politics, it's a lot of shady stuff happening.
It's unethical. I mean, either you're an American and you fight for this nation and our family, which is all of us. We should be with no division, one family. One nation. We not a divided nation, but one nation under God. Period. That's where we need to be. And it is. And not we're so fractured right now. We're men, women. Black, white, which I've never seen a white person or a black person. There's all variations of something in the middle, right? And so, Hispanic, and now we've got, I don't know. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and how they've got us divided and such, and then you get into the lunacy, like women are now a birthing woman with bonus holes, and I'm like, somebody says that to me, and I'm gonna let them have it, and so that they will not walk away without getting their tail, losing 10 pounds off their tail, because I'm gonna chew tail on them. That is so insulting to me. And
who said that? Where did that come from?
That's the new thing. Is that women, and I am a woman, and I am not confused, nor have I ever been confused. My husband's not confused. The horses aren't confused. Chickens aren't confused. Dogs not confused, right? Nobody's confused here. And so now it's that we're birthing persons with bonus holes.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this kind. I think
it's ridiculous.
The gay or homosexual communities referred to about women before. I mean, I've heard things along this line.
I don't care who says it.
We used to make, as instrument, we used to make crude jokes, if you can imagine that, at 18, 19-year-old kind of guys. But, that kind of thing, that just gets under your skin. Just roll. It's a joke, move on. It's,
no, they're serious when they say it.
Once again, about free speech, right? This is how we win. Yeah. We laugh at those things, and we allow them to say these ridiculous things and not let it get under skin, because that's how we win these kind of debates.
But I can also respond. I can also respond to their stupidity too. And so that's my, it's like, that's what I do. It's like, I respond to their stupidity. That's okay. I'm not just going to roll over and say, this is okay. It's like, okay, you're an idiot. That's okay. And that's my free speech, in my opinion.
Well, that might be the better use. It's a smart thing to do, a better use of your time, not to argue with them and just laugh about it, because your time's valuable. You could really spend a lot of time arguing with these people, but you're probably not going to convince them.
There's truth to that. So now let's talk about Wuhan and some of the things that you found, because, just even to stay on the DeVos bent here and what's going on here, because I think you've had so much experience, and I think people need to have you go through it again on what happened with your brake lines being manipulated and acid in your wood burner and such. This is like next level attacks going on, subversive attacks. So this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so my background, so I was trained as a scientist or expert in pandemics, biowarfare, bioterror. I worked at a top secret clearance, and I worked at Sandia National Laboratories in this area. So I was privileged to a lot of different information. I served as an advisor to foreign heads of state in bioterror, pandemics. I was an advisor to the UN. And one day I decided to quit working for the deep state, so I thought. And I started working for this place called EcoHealth Alliance, which was the organization that funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology. My boss was Dr. Peter Daszak. I was hired as a senior scientist. I brought in about $6 million of funding my first year. And I was developing machine learning, or it's also known as artificial intelligence, to basically predict and locate pandemics or emerging infectious disease outbreaks. And I was highly successful at this. All sorts of crazy things were going on at this company. I realized it was basically an intelligence collection operation. My former boss, Dr. Daszak, approached me late after work in 2015 and asked me whether or not he should work with the CIA. And, he said that they're interested in the places that they're working, the people we were working with, and the data we're collecting. And then he sort of mumbled something about the Chinese. And, I told him, Peter, it never hurts to talk to them. There could be money in it. Well, I leave the organization in 2016. I don't think anything of it. And this progresses in a very sort of interesting way. So I wanted to be a faculty member at Michigan State University. That's when I moved to Michigan. I was a professor there for 3 years. And then I went out to California for a higher paying executive position in biotech. And that's when I catch wind of COVID-19. Actually, someone from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency by the name of Dr. Amy Jenkins called me out of the blue in late September, early October 2019. And asked me if I wanted the program officer or program manager position for DARPA in the biologics division, which was, I was shocked to receive a phone call from her. She was calling me on a new cell phone number that I hadn't shared with anyone previously in my national security world. And I didn't really, wasn't putting the pieces together. I just thought they wanted me to really work in this position. And typically, how this is strange, you typically get offered that position in your mid to late 40s. And I was about 30, I think, 2 at the time, 33 when I was being offered this position. So I was really young to be offered this position. I probably had the technical merit, but not the experience. But I turned it down because I was making 3 to 4 times the amount of money that the government could pay me. And I wasn't interested in moving back to Washington, D.C. And so then you fast forward to December 2019, I catch wind of COVID. And, in my field as an emerging infectious disease specialist or epidemiologist, when these kind of pneumonia-like illnesses pop up around the country, we all talk to each other. We have a network of people and experts that we can call and get information. We start asking, what's going on. We start digging, and we're always looking for the next pandemic because that's what we're trained to do, so we can prevent it or stop it. Well, for everybody else, I decided everybody else really isn't even aware that this is a big deal. Early 2020, we decided to get out of California, and we buy the property up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We had moved in here at this house by, I think it was March 1st, 2020. And I was telling all my friends and family, this is going to be the next big pandemic. You need to stock up on respirators, get food, be ready because, things could start shutting down. And everyone thought it was nuts, right? Everyone thought it was crazy. Huff is just doing this, Dr. Huff's just doing this crazy thing. And, I was right about all of that. The disease didn't turn out to be as bad, thank God, as we all thought it could have been. We didn't have the mortality. We didn't have the morbidity. And I'm watching the U.S. government for all of 2020 with all this background information that I know about EcoHealth Alliance working with the gain-of-function research on SARS-CoV-2 in Wuhan at this laboratory, and none of it makes sense. The guidance that they're telling people, the lockdown policy, the mask policy, wear masks, don't wear masks. I helped work on the National Pandemic Preparedness Plan, so everything that they're telling us just doesn't make sense. And it scares the piss out of me. Okay, because think about it. I used to be one of these people. I was being groomed to be the Dr. Anthony Fauci or Dr. Burke. And I'm looking at this and none of it makes sense. This is just crazy. Why are they behaving this way? And I sort of come to the conclusion that this is some kind of cover-up going on. And they're not, and then by the time my boss, Dr. Peter Daszak, is appointed to be on the WHO committee to investigate the origin of the lab leak, the second that he gets appointed that and hear about it, I'm like, holy crap, the whole thing's a cover-up. Because, here I'm thinking, my boss is working with the CIA. He's being appointed to lead the investigation of the source of the outbreak. We were doing this gain-of-function work at the laboratory, and nobody, everyone thought that was a conspiracy theory, but I had all the original documents. So I released all my documents on Twitter to prove everything that I'm saying, the intelligence community's involvement, the source being the lab leak. I went on social media for the first year in 2020, and I was on LinkedIn. I was up to 40 or 80,000 followers, maybe 100. It was a lot, a ridiculous number for LinkedIn. And finally, I get kicked off, but because I was trying to get the narrative going that this was a laboratory leak. And I had been working with Dr. Robert Malone, who I think has some intelligence or pharmaceutical ties as well. But anyways, we were pushing this narrative real hard on LinkedIn. And eventually I get kicked off LinkedIn. I go over to Twitter. And that's when I started experiencing a lot of weird harassment. And unfortunately, that harassment came from different groups. One was, I'd say, would be patriot globalist interests, a dark shady group there. One was Health Freedom, and the other one was government. And some of the harassment, I believe, could have been tied into intelligence operation going on with Attorney Tom Renz, Christina Caramo, and Robert Owens, who's come up in conversation here. And I actually have some pretty good proof that they've been involved in some shady politics here in the state of Michigan for quite some time. And that's why I was shocked to actually speak with Matt DePerno and Warren last week about these different issues, because I sort of have the evidence of what's going on here and where the money's coming from. And it's weird because everyone's running a psychological operation. How that pertains back to my story is that I end up taking the attacks from 3 different sides. I got a white puppy over here. So I get the U.S. government coming after me. So that'd be like the FBI, the intelligence community, and state and local law enforcement. And then I also get the health freedom nut jobs and some of the I call corrupt patriots coming after me at the same time. And, these operations, too, are being funded by high wealth people in our state and high wealth people out of state. I don't want to name who they are yet because I'm giving them the opportunity to make things right. Because if they don't, I'll go back to the thing is, I hold all the cards here. I can sue these people. I'm already suing the government, and I'm going to win on those cases. And then the question is, what do I do with these health freedom nuts and these patriot nuts? Do I sue them? Do I expose them? Or do I pull the nuclear option and I give the CIA a call and say, go back and work for them, and I get American justice the way that I want to do without a rule book? And people think that I'm kidding around. I don't have these connections, but I do. I actually filed an application yesterday to be one of the assistant directors of the Office Director of National Intelligence. And I've got a pretty impressive intelligence CV, and I can have classified conversations about the work that I used to do. And I will go, if I get so pissed off, I will go back into the government. I will just level the playing field in this country for everyone. And what I mean there is that I will treat all groups equally. Just like I used to be when I was a Fed before. I'll go after the Democrats. I'll go after the corrupt Republicans, and I'll do it from the intelligence angle, and I'll make people's lives shambles and ruins. And I don't want to do that. Actually, I'd rather people start to work out the differences. But when you start to get targeted by different civilian populations, groups, and high wealth people, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. There's no reason for these people on the left or the right in either the health freedom movement or the patriot movement to come after me, because the government was already doing it. That's what I'm so pissed off about. And how this pertains back to, my whole story and what they did to me. Well, for example, someone dumped acid in my wood boiler. The government, I'm pretty sure, is responsible for the hacking of my vehicles and my cars. They actually were able to take over the braking and steering controls. Or they had possibly implanted devices in the vehicles to do that. Modern day cars are just basically computers, or have a lot of computing in them, and you can easily add devices to interfere with things. And who watches their car 24/7? I mean, nobody does. My house has been broken into repeatedly. They say it's my dogs. They stole electronic devices.
You did what with your dogs?
Yeah, they say it's my dogs. I have pictures of this. They shot a gunshot from my mailbox. Wow. And some of this was government, and some of this was local idiots working with the government, like confidential informants. Some of this were patriots, okay, quote unquote patriots. And some were health freedom people. And I know, and the thing is, you have them out of state and you have them in state. And I've actually met some of these people face to face, and they think that I'm stupid and I don't know what's going on. The best part is I'm just waiting to drop the hammer on all of them. And the more rope I give them, the more rope the more rope I continue to give them, the more evidence they give me, and they're hanging themselves and they don't even know it. So yeah, I'm really at an interesting crossroads here. So out of this whole thing, though, when I started experiencing all this harassment, I read this book. See if I got a copy here handy. Usually I do. My box of books is somewhere else. Here, I got a copy. Give me a second. I have a box of them over here. So the truth about Wuhan. So it has 4.4 stars on Amazon. I have great reviews from all the critics. Of course, it's like shadow banned from the New York Times bestseller list, but I sold quite a few copies. And if anyone wants to pick it up, it basically tells my life story and builds the credibility to what happens, and has all the details explaining that the Agent SARS-CoV-2 was a big agent. It was done in partnership with pharmaceutical industry, like companies like Moderna, the Wellcome Trust, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the U.S. government, various agencies and laboratories. I brought all this information to the public. There's a couple other people, I think, globally that your audience should check out. So one's Dr. Saeed Khan. He has a alias on Twitter. I don't want to dox him, but he's a genius. I believe he's from, well, I don't even want to say that either. He's a genius, though, and he got forward much of the critical genetics work that proved that parts of the SARS-CoV-2 sequence were patented by Moderna back in 2015 or 2016, and those sequences were collected and edited off samples from my time at EcoHealth Alliance. So we were going around the planet trying to sample and collect back coronaviruses, but really all this work that was being done at EcoHealth Alliance was being done with a number of other companies and players for medical countermeasure, or AKA vaccine development.
Can you spell his name, Saeed? How do you spell Saeed Khan? S-A-Y-E-D, and then space Khan, K-A-H-N. So he's hard to find because he's heavily shadow banned on all the platforms. He has an alias that he goes by called Arc Medic.
That's ARK. MEDIC, like Archmedic, and he has a Substack. So if you look for Archmedic on Substack, he talks about all these different things, and these are old Substacks. So he published this information, I want to say a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. It's been a while, and it was before my book came out. And there's been some peer-reviewed publications that were then retracted by the scientific community and the publishers, but the scientists still stand behind the peer-reviewed publications, and we saved copies of those. Are people that are experts in the field to prove that this was a man-made virus. And this whole thing is we're beyond that point now, because myself and a few other people have pushed Congress and the government so hard about the debate now is whether or not who's more at fault, the Chinese or the United States. And the problem is we're both equally at fault, because it was advanced biotechnology that was developed at the University of North Carolina and with other partners like Columbia University, Dr. Ian Lipkin, and experts at EcoHealth Alliance like Dr. John Epstein and Dr. Kevin Olival, who were my fellow vice presidents, had been working on this project with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Dr. Das was just the PI, so like a figurehead. PI means principal investigator. So we had all these different scientists working on this project together. And we gave the Chinese the technology, and then the question is whether or not, who's more responsible for the lab leak. And this is the interesting part of the story, because everybody knew in the U.S. government that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the Chinese bioweapons lab. It was built by the French back in, I would say, 2008 or 9, I believe. It could be off on that date. And it was built by a company called bioMérieux. The CEO of bioMérieux was Stephen Bancel. Have you heard that name before? Mm. Stephen Bancel is the CEO now of Moderna.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. So they built that laboratory, and it was not built to spec. It didn't have the right kind of HVAC, air filtration, negative positive pressure system to work with aerosolized pathogens or agents. So I don't know if Bancel knew that this lab was deficient, but the other thing is in 2016 through 2018, a series of reports come out through the State Department from scientists visiting that laboratory that the Chinese were conducting experiments in inadequate biosafety conditions, meaning they were doing work that was high risk without the right safety equipment or the right safety posture. And those reports were ignored by EcoHealth Alliance and other people in the U.S. government. They allowed them to basically keep doing this work in partnership and by funding them and giving them the biotechnology. And then you fast forward to 2019 and everyone knows what happened now. So, it's really a crazy story. You can't make it up. But in the book, if anyone wants to read it and not have this sort of version where I'm hopping all around, it goes in chronological order. And this is written at a level where a person with a 12th grade reading level can understand. So and that was really my mission, was to communicate this highly complex science to the everyday average American.
So this is your website, and there's your book, The Truth About Wuhan. And so I think that just so that everybody knows that they can go to andrewhuff.com, and your books are there too. So we've got a link to your Substack as well as all the information about that. So I think that's important, that when somebody cares to put this much work into things, I think it's really honoring to them to go to their website and check them out a little bit. And sounds like a good Christmas present, actually, for people. I mean, we can spend a lot of money on some very worthless trinkets and such, or we can actually help educate the people around us, and I find that to be really super, super important.
I do too.
Okay, it looks like I'm knocked off of we're knocked off of Rumble, one of the Rumble channels, and I don't know what's going on there.
You mean like they took it down?
Yeah, this is not going on there. So please, I have to tell everyone to go to. So Rumble keeps knocking us off.
Why is that?
Probably because we're telling the truth. And see, I really believe that they can pretty much try to hack everything. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy what's happening here.
Yeah, well, it's weird. It's a bunch of weird interests, and the sad thing is that all these different groups, the way I see it, if you step back and look at how this is all played out, is that everything has become one giant psychological operation. The different groups are all playing different psychological operations. I understand clearly what those psychological operations are. Actually, my undergraduate degree was in psychology, and I worked heavily in clinical research. And one of the things that you learn in that field, if you're actually serious about the field, because there's a lot of people in psychology who are, I'd say, they're spiritual, but in a way that's not good for science. So their heart's in the right place, but they're not hardcore psychometricians. And you're taught how to observe the world with everything being an illusion, right? Because your human brain pieces things together which are not necessarily real. And there's all sorts of psychological phenomena, and that's what psyops play at. They play at the human psyche in terms of how you view and shape the world, your heuristics and your schemas. And you see these different groups playing these different psychological operations. And the problem is, I think that it's one that, their intent is to either garner support for issues with whatever psyop you pick, whether it's like the narrative of it, for example, and it always helps to talk about specifics. The psyop where COVID was a naturally emerging disease, and we all need to be afraid. The government psyop. Okay, and then there's the other psyop. What's another good one from the right that's being waged? Everything is a conspiracy, and they're all out to get us, right? So there's always truth. The truth is always somewhere in the middle. And they're pushing these narratives because they want to achieve their political agenda. The problem is with these psyops, though, is they're highly dangerous because people get pissed off, and then they become violent, and they can do things. And
that's what they
the
want.
Dangerous world that we're in. That these psyops are pushing actually the country towards an internal violent conflict. And last night on social media, someone sent me a link to some new Civil War movie in the United States that's supposed to take place. And I was just chatting on Twitter about this morning, that someone claimed that this was being financed by a Chinese investment group, and it looks like it's big money Hollywood with the type of CGI, the large elaborate stages that are taking place. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, the last thing that we want in this country is a civil war.
Right.
Okay. We do not. People joke about it, especially on the right. You hear a lot of this blowhard stuff. Well, I'm going to tell the people on the right, which is probably mostly our audience, I'll believe it when I see it, because the last time I checked, the people that actually went and steamrolled cities were leftists, funded by Soros, brick piles and all this crap, burning down Wendy's or whatever. The left is actually willing to do these things, and the right is just a bunch of talk, and they're not willing to do these things. And if it comes to the point where then these two groups have to clash with each other, I don't know what the heck the government's going to do. Like, the National Guard, they're people in your community. They're our brothers, our sisters, our families. I mean, it'd be the biggest mess ever. But I can tell you that outside the country, that's what they all want. They all want the United States to collapse. And that's what international policy is all about, is it's trying to keep those outside influences in. And these high wealth families might even benefit from an internal collapse within the United States. So we have to be aware of that, and we have to come together as a community at the local level and be civil and find solutions to our problems and stop hating all of our neighbors. And that's one of the best things we can do. If we keep on fighting with the left, okay, like it's some bloodbath fight, that's what we're going to have, is a bloodbath fight. And if we can just become more effective and organize around our political objectives and get things funded, we'll have more victory. But until people are willing to chip in and pay for that fight, spend time, dedicate their time to it, especially within our camp, it's not going to happen. And a lot of people like to go into social media and bitch and complain. A lot of people like to, I have friends, for example, that complain all year about politics. They're in the right. These people, they're right. They're conservatives of some type. And they're on that camp and they don't vote, right? And they're like, what matter? What does it matter if I vote? Why should I get active? It's going to be the same old thing. Well, how are we going to change it? How are we going to change it unless people get active and do things?
Well, we have to reach across the aisle, because honestly, that's exactly what they don't want us to do. They don't want us talking. They don't want us working together. They want us to hate each other and to say, okay, these, I went to, you can call it behavior, when you see it. I'll call out behavior. When somebody calls CPS on someone, the largest child trafficking organization in North America, we have a behavior problem right there. And there needs to be a fast correction and an apology for that. But, we need to be able to have some civil discussions. I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe in the Republican form of government, which is what a Republican is. There's a democratic process that goes on at a local level, but the country is set up as a constitutional republic, right? Overall. So all of these labels are like, I am strictly this or I am strictly that. It's like, well, hold on a minute. You're not really doing a very thorough analysis there. And I went and I met Robert F. Kennedy. And do I have any heroes or pariahs out there right now? I've got people that I appreciate the work that they've done, but people are just people, and every single one of us is fallible. So we have to realize that we're not looking for Jesus Christ to all of a sudden emerge here, or expect people who are people and not God to be God. They can't do that. People can't do that. There's only one God. That's it. And his precious son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay. I'm going to say it right there. But when we're dealing with people and you look at somebody like Robert F. Kennedy, everybody on the way right is like, oh, he's a terrible person. He's a this or that. He believes in climate change. Okay. All right. So he does. I disagree with it, but that doesn't mean I just shut him out because of one issue that I disagree with. Listen to what he's done fighting in the courts for vaccine injuries and such. The guy's a beast when it comes to fighting these issues, and we need him. He's got the right to his opinions on this, but I have the right to also be a little smarter and do the research if I disagree with something. And maybe I'm wrong on these issues. We have to be able to be a little bit in a state of flux when we have new or better information, and be able to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to stay tied to the political cults out there, because that's all they are. Political parties have devolved into cults. And it works the same way. They're garnering favor with people above them in order to have some sort of position or respect. That's a cult. And instead of being able to think for yourself and challenge it, President Trump, when I was down there in Mar-a-Lago, he made a statement. I disagree with the statement. He said that, and I love President Trump. He's the rightful president of the United States. That's the American process. End of story. Okay. And so when he was down there, he mentioned that Washington, D.C. is full of trash, and that there's graffiti on the post. And I was like, what? I was just there. That's not true. I was there. I have pictures I saw with my own eyes. And when you see things in your own eyes, you don't have to stupidly believe everything that's said. You go and you check it out. It's not true. That statement was false, patently false. And I was like, why would he say that? But then I go back to realizing that, there's a lot more going on out there than what we maybe understand at first glance. So it's like, the man deserves our respect. He didn't have to do this. And until we get good people that are from the outside that are willing to step into these positions and actually take, I'm not expecting him to do everything right or say everything right. It's impossible, right? And he was surrounded by the swamp. People say, well, he should have, had better people. Who's he going to get, guys? They're all corrupt. It's like, but we have to stand with the process.
So go ahead. I think it's important. I just want to interject one thing. I mean, one of the big problems, and I brought this up to numerous people. Numerous people have asked me to run in primary Jack Bergman. And I said, fine, but if you can get the money to make it happen, I would do it. And I gave these people until November 14th to get the money together. And I had a budget, and I did work on the campaign plan, did all this stuff. I was an executive at a couple different companies. I mean, I can handle most of this crap on my own. And I'm a tech guy. And so I come together and I come forward. I'm like, well, this is what we need to run. This is what it'll take. I need to get this financed. And, everyone drops the ball. And here's the thing. You're not going to get high-performing executive types to go work in the government for a massive salary cut, pay cut, big sacrifice to their personal lives, and do all these things unless you can get them to take care of their basic needs and to get compensated in some way and get their campaigns financed so they can be effective at winning the game instead of running around asking people for money. And this is why we keep on electing stupid people in this country and people that don't deserve to be in Congress or the Senate, because what they're good at is taking money and asking people for money to get reelected or to get elected, rather than being good at making policy or understanding how a parliamentary process works or understanding how the government and the mechanics of the government work. Because frankly, I'm better off making a bunch of money myself, a ton of money, and then paying idiots that I can bribe through K Street to go enforce the policies that I want, or pay and shape in some other way. And this is the nature of our system. And until Americans understand that they need to start sacrificing something for the country, whether it's blood, sweat, tears, or money, the system is going to remain the same. And people like me are not going to get back in the game. I'm more incentivized to go work for the intelligence community, where I can get paid more than the president, okay, or some other place. There's ways to make money in that world, which is above the schedule, and everybody's doing it. And I can have more impact. And people don't understand, like, you know, that you have the first tier government, where you have like your congressman, they make $174K per year salary. They probably don't have to work too hard, but they should be working their butts off of that money. But you have another executive or guy who probably want more in that position. They can go make $500K, $750K, $1 million a year. And these are not numbers that I'm making up. I mean, this is very real. These are my alternative options. So you can only take so much money from people, and people can only contribute so much to the fight, is that they have time and resources to do so. And personally, I exhausted everything I had in this fight, trying for truth, liberty, freedom. I lost a couple $100,000 in direct costs. What else have I given? I gave up 3 years of salary, my executive salary in this fight. And people eventually get, you know, black pill about it. And I'm at that point. And I think a number of other qualified people for state, local races are at that point. They just don't want to be involved because nobody else actually wants to contribute to the fight. And conservatives are the worst at this. I mean, I'm just going to flat out say it. They all say that, oh yeah, we can't wait for the Civil War. We have all the guns. We're going to light up the cities. These people aren't going to do anything. They sit on their butts and they're lazy. And I'm going to say that about my own side. That's me being an objective leader looking at it. Like I said, the left are the ones burning down the cities. The conservatives are not the ones doing it. So, you know, when the right makes threats about what they're going to do, they're not believable by the left, because the left knows what the truth is.
Do you have a few minutes? Because Warren Carpenter can get on, and he's got some things. Do you have a few minutes that we can just have Warren on, because he's got to go to an appointment? So, morning, Warren. How you doing? Your microphone is muted.
Hey, what's going on? Good to see you, Andrew.
Good to see you.
So let's talk about. You said you had some stuff to talk about today that you know we're kind of working on. Do you have some breaking news? Because we're talking about this crap show that's going on here in Michigan. And I got to tell you, to defend your whether I agree, I never agree 100% with what anybody says, and can usually pick it apart and say, at the core issue here, we've got a problem, right? But when somebody goes after a family's children, that is, I can't deal with it. And so now I'm getting attacked viciously right now, but I stand with what I stand. You do not go after families, children. And I don't care, this sniping at each other is what's tearing this down. I don't agree with all of the policies of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. There's flaws there. I certainly don't agree with 99% of the process right now, because it encourages corruption. The whole thing makes it all about money, and this is patently wrong. And so, but tell us what's going on, because I'm waiting for an apology to your children at this point in time for a CPS statement, which is anybody that makes a dumb statement like that, that's the largest child trafficking organization in North America, potentially the world at this point in time. And I'm not okay with that. So at any rate, you deserve an apology for that. And we're going to stand on that right now, whether I agree or disagree with you, that I agree to stand with your family.
Amen. Yeah. That kind of stuff, I take it with a grain of salt, depending upon, who the source of the information is. And
I don't. It's a clear
I understand that. And that's why I addressed it, with Chuck and everything. And they're going to continue to snipe and do what they do. But, if you don't have haters, then you're not doing the work. right? That's just a fact. You know, if people aren't screaming at you that don't know you and, you know, coming from all sides, you know, if there's not shrieks and screams, then you ain't doing the work, you know, and it's a byproduct of the work that I'm putting in right now. And I don't care, bring it. So I do want to break some news for you guys, a couple interesting tidbits of development since the report has come out. You know, the first one I want to talk about is the Jim Caviezel loan. And we had spoken about that a little bit, about how it's an FEC violation and there's some issues with that. It turns out now, right, that there is a loan origination document that was written on August 1st, they're saying now. I'm going to assume if we did some ink analysis, we'd find out that it was retroactively made, right, to support the fact that it's a loan, because everybody in the administration was coming out saying it was a gift, an in-kind, generous donation from a wealthy donor early. We have now found out that there is interest on the Jim Caviezel loan from Jim Kopas's wife, the Lynette Wilson Trust, in the tune of, just pull it out of the air, they came up with 3%. And then every time that they're late on a payment, there is $1,000 late fee. And it was just announced to the budget committee on Monday night's budget call that they are 2 payments behind, and there are late fees that they're going to have to pay. And every payment is $10,000 a month for a total of 12 months. So on a $110,000 loan, the Kopas family, Lynette Wilson Trust, will probably net somewhere around 20, I'd say between $15,000 and $20,000. And I base that on the $10,000 that they're charging in interest for the 3% over 12 months. And then the late payment charges that they're going to accrue because this administration never pays any bills on time. So I really want to talk about like the Overton window that has shifted from here. Okay. So we went from, it was a donation in kind from a wealthy donor to it might be a loan to it is a loan to now there's interest and penalties on the loan, and it's a $10,000 a month payment. Now I want to juxtaposition that to the line of credit default, which they're claiming, which all they would have to do is write one $15,000 check, right? And then the loan would be current, and we wouldn't have to go to court and incur new lawyer fees and possible sanctions from the court based upon the party. And here's the other thing. If the line of credit ultimately defaults, that will go on the credit rating for the EIN of the Michigan Republican Party, which will basically stop them from being able to go to other banks and ever secure financing again. So they're willing to pay somebody who they said was a gift. Now it's a loan, double the amount that the line of credit is due, right, for interest and payments. It's only $4,500 a month. That's all they have to send to the line of credit in order for it never to go into default. But they're going to default on the line of credit based on not paying $15,000. Yet, because their November and December payment is due for the Jim Caviezel loan to Lynette Kopas's wife, and they approved a January payment plus penalties, they're going to write Jim Kopas a check for somewhere in the neighborhood of $32,000, $31,000, okay, this month, but they're not going to pay the $15,000 to stop the legal default of a line of credit that has been established in the party for years because they refuse to pay the interest. I think that is a damning piece of evidence that just came out. And there's one more thing that I can kind of talk about, but I can't give you all the details on. Now, at the December 2nd state committee meeting, on the virtual one, right, the one that was denied quorum by the in-person meeting at Lakes, Multi-Lakes Conservative Association in Commerce, not the one that had the quorum of in-person people to deny her the ability to do business, Dan Hartman gave a report. Now, in that report, he claimed that MIGOP received a huge donation, right? And he said that because people are seeing what Christina's doing and they're so happy with it that they have secured this large out-of-state donation for $263,000. Okay, I got a little information on that, just so everybody knows. That money came from Kevin McCarthy. That money came from Kevin McCarthy from the Protect Your House PAC. So I just want the grassroots to understand something. This is the MAGA chair, right? Who's out there now lying to you, telling you that a wealthy big dollar donor came in to save the party. And that money is actually from Kevin McCarthy, from the Protect Your House PAC. Now, here's the thing about this. It's even worse for her than that, right? She has constantly said, and I know, Donna, you don't care for Ron, and that's okay, but this is just facts, right? If you want to talk about truth, then let's talk truth, right? When Christina took over the administration, Ron left $380,000 in the bank accounts, roughly, let's say, okay? And he left some debt on the line of credit that she could have paid that off, but she didn't. She took all the money that Ron raised and left in the accounts and spent it while disparaging the man and saying that, we don't need these we don't need these globalist dollars. At Mackinac, she said high dollar donors and people from the establishment pound sand. Okay. So she spent $380,000 of that pound sand money, right? While at the same time disparaging the guy that raised the money. Well, the information that came out about this donation from Kevin McCarthy's Protect Your House Pact is it's money that's refunded from a joint fundraising agreement that the NRCC and Ron Weiser went into in the 2022 cycle. It's leftover funds. So she's now taking more money from Ron Weiser. You can't make this shit up, man. I'm sorry. So there's two pieces of breaking news for your audience. I wanted to deliver
Unbelievable.
it.
Unbelievable.
Fact, yeah. So Ron Weiser is still basically supporting the party, even though indirectly, but she'll never admit that because the woman is a liar. And with that,
that's actually, so from my perspective, me being new to the Michigan Republican Party, at least being active in it, the weird thing here is then why create all this conflict internal to the party? So if nothing's really changed in terms of follow the money game, and we still have the same people funding our state, but it's serving against our own interests. Why not just be transparent about this and just talk about, hey, we had leftover funds from the National Republican Party, previous contracts, Ron Weiss money. Why not just say that? And then get over this internal conflict we have, because the bigger issue I see here is that we're all fighting with each other. That doesn't, and between, I wish there'd be some agreement between these two camps. And this could be the kind of thing where you'd say, well, maybe I should step back from Christina's camp and step back and say, well, maybe we shouldn't be so hardline on some of these issues. Because if you're taking globalist money or you're taking RNC national money, just be transparent and say that, and then try to make some compromises so the whole damn party doesn't fall apart.
It's all compromise.
The idea is to have the party implode, and that's what the RNC wants. Then why do we keep on? I mean, this should just be out in the open for everyone. We should discuss it and move on, because we're going to get crushed in the election cycle unless we do.
And that's the thing. That's the thing, Andrew. I want to say real quick, right? It's that so if the RNC wants to destroy the party, if all these people are trying to destroy, then why do they keep funding and having to see? The thing is that the RNC is doing what the obligation for the agreement, the joint fundraising agreement, was, that they're returning the funds. They're following the rules, right? The rules of campaign finance, the rules that were set up in the agreement. They're honoring the contract. There's one side that isn't, and then won't even tell you the truth about where these funds are coming, and are acting like it's on behalf of her noble intentions and all the things and efforts she's put forward, and people in the country are realizing it. Well, I guess the people that are realizing it and that are her friends now are Kevin McCarthy.
What I can't believe is that the fact that you can't trust either side, because Weiser was contributing to Burisma Oil as well as Biden. These people are lying their tails off, because there's so much commingling going on that I'm going to tell you what, this is just two wings of the same bird, and they're working together to destroy the nation. All of them are. They're all corrupt as hell, and I don't see a way out of it other than going back to a level playing field here and starting over, because none of them have fought. And to think that the Republican Party right now, which is not winning anything, it's an illusion. That's all we have to deal with right now, is an illusion. We've got overt problems.
I got two I got 2 minutes, Don. I just want to finish with this thought, right? So Christina Karamo's fundraising plan when she ran for chair said that she would have raised $30 million for this. As soon as she got into office, she was disparaging the prior administration and all prior administrations as being these slush funds, and we don't want that money. But yet the only money that she's taken in and has used to spend, with the exception of $185,000, has all been from these people. And yet she takes the money, she spends it, she enriches herself, makes her own paychecks, takes her Ubers, has an expense account, buying stuff from 7-Eleven and, Quality Dairy, and getting parking tickets for not paying, like all this stuff. And it's all on Ron's dime still. So the woman that hates these people so much, if she had so much character, if she had so much integrity, she would send that check back. But she's not going to, because she wants the money. And that's what you people got to learn. All right, I got to go. I got to go get a scan. I love you guys.
All right. Love you, Warren. Thank you. Yeah. So I have no faith in anybody that's sitting in the seat right now. I'm kind of a fan of eliminating all political parties and redoing the system a little bit, because it's so corrupt. I don't believe that it's redeemable at this point in time. That everybody's taking money, and this should be something that it's peeled back far enough that the money stays in the hands of the people. We're at a 70% to 80% tax rate right now, which means people are working until October, November, and it doesn't matter. It's the American people that are losing because everyone is basing their actions on money. Now, I have lost a ton of money. I'll say, hold my beer in that one. I'm going to tell you what, and talk about working. I spend 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day minimal on stuff like BNN and interviewing and talking to people and researching and that sort of thing. Besides the money that I spent with almost no help from anyone. I mean, I was probably 97, 98%, trying to fix this nation. And, it's like, I look at people that jump into this as a way to make money. And there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong about the government being an industry where people are trading cash around. And I mean, look at what's happening with Wise or anybody that serves in this nation. It should be like a jury duty. You show up, you get paid, rather than have it be a political career. I think it's absolutely wrong. But to your point, we've got idiots in office, and when we do need a service that is a high functioning service, that there's a difference there, And I really haven't met anybody in office that's actually got an IQ over about 50. It's like
it's not that bad.
Well, come on, it's
pretty much average intelligence.
I'm at
50 means like you're technically retarded, by psychological definition or scientific.
Have you sat with these people? Have you sat with these people?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are of average intelligence, but they're smart enough to learn the game, right? Or maybe just slightly higher than average.
No, they're survivors.
And that's fine. Everyone, there's a normal distribution for IQ for a reason. It's just humanity, okay?
They're predators,
you're either
though.
born with a gift, or you're the right gifts, or you're not, okay? And you can't hold that against people.
They're predators.
People get into politics because they're easily corruptible, manipulated, they're placed there, and there's simple solutions to get out of this. And I've discussed these for years with both the left and the right. So everyone says we need term limits. Well, Michigan is a perfect example of why term limits make things worse. If you actually look at here, if you have career politicians that are good at their job, you want to keep them in there, okay? And you want to keep on electing, because actually experience matters for running the government. The more experience you have working in the executive branch, different agencies, being a contractor, if you're not corrupt, it makes you actually better at the job, okay? And that's why I'm good at fighting the government, because I'm not corrupt, but I know all the different levers and switches and things you can do to really make the government's life miserable, or the agencies. And then what is the solution then? Well, one, you have to pay politicians more. People think that's crazy. Well, if you want to get executive talent into these positions, you have to actually compete with the executive market for compensation. But the thing you do is you make it illegal, and you actually criminalize for them to have investments, right? They shouldn't have any stock market portfolio for the things that they're financing through Congress. There should be no conflict of interest between their investment portfolio or their financial holdings and the office that they hold. That's the biggest problem in my mind, because that's how all these people go into Congress, and they come out millionaires, 10 or 15 years later, they see where the appropriations money is going. They know ahead of time, and the public, because it's being discussed in committees, which nobody, pays attention to or has access to. And then they make their money move. They make their investment, and then they know that that's going to pass through the budget process over the next few months, and boom, that's how they make all the money, because they know the contract's coming. It's no big secret, but that's the thing that's actually the biggest risk to democracy or the constitutional republic, however you want to frame it. That's the biggest risk, because that's how people are making the money. So it's like, look at how they're making the money, plug that hole, and then compensate people more in office for the jobs that they hold. Because there's no reason why a politician, a congressman who's like a mini executive, a senator who's a bit higher level executive, or people working in the White House shouldn't be making as much as people who work at the CIA, the national labs, these other things. There's people who work just in the one periphery of government who bring in, like Anthony Fauci, who bring in like an annual salary of $1 million a year. And the reason why they bring in those kind of salaries is they're competing with the private sector, and that's the justification that's made within their agency. If Dr. Anthony Fauci, before he became he's probably been a terrible person for a long time, but let's just assume that Dr. Anthony Fauci was a good person, he wasn't evil, just for argument's sake, in this one example, and the government was trying to prevent losing him to the private sector, they would have to offer him more money. That's exactly what they do through a lot of different agencies outside the elected branch or the judicial branch of government. If you want people to have judges who are not corrupt and have lifetime appointments, you have to pay them more money. You want the best legal minds in there. The best litigators and trial attorneys have no desire to go be a Supreme Court justice or to be a federal judge appointee. You want to know why? Because they're racking in $10 million a year on litigating cases. So you have to look and understand that the government is a business to some extent and how it functions. So the way that you solve the problems is you need campaign finance reform, so we get the money out of politics, and you pay the politicians more, but then you also make it impossible for them to have outside investments. And that's something that both the left and the right should be able to agree to, because it levels the playing field, and it reduces the amount of outside influence. And if somebody can plug a hole in that idea, I'm willing to debate that with somebody, but I can't see how those simple tweaks to the government, the federal system, wouldn't greatly reduce the amount of corruption that we have in this country. And besides, the politicians are going to agree to it. I don't think any of the politicians want to be corrupt. And if you tell them that they're going to, we're going to have a big pay raise, and you have a constitutional amendment or however you're going to get this through and how they're going to structure it, and they don't have to go out and they don't have to beg people for money for their campaigns anymore. Okay, congressmen don't have to spend all their time begging money for campaigns. They only have to raise so many signatures to get federally funded dollars to run their campaigns. And then you put the candidates on an equal funding playing field. The campaign finance reform solves it. And there's a number of Democrats and Republicans that already agree to this in the House and the Senate. The one that always comes to my mind is Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz goes around saying he votes actually for campaign finance reform all the time, but none of his colleagues do. And there's a few other senators. I think Rand Paul's another one that's a big fan of it. I mean, there are some good conservatives that are also a fan of exactly what I'm saying, is that you get the money and the investments and the campaign finance reform out of the game, or the campaign financing out of the game, it totally changes the game. And it's not term limits. Actually, if we had the campaign finance reform done, I would love to have a senator that was so popular where he received, or she received enough money annually, was so good at their job, their performance over 6 years, that when they were up for re-election, that everyone voted for them based on the same amount of campaign financing that their opponents get. Think about it. I mean, it's a true popularity contest, and it's not a contest of who has the most money. It's like who's doing the best job, and that's how we give the power back to the people, that we have a system where it's the influence peddling is not influencing the vote.
I think I'm a little more cynical than you are of human beings, because I think that even if you paid these people a whole bunch of money, I don't think that they have the integrity to actually carry it forward and say that's good enough, because what we've seen is their hand in every single cookie jar that's out there, and it doesn't matter. They're not just getting it in one direction. The lack of integrity of these people in office is just absolutely astounding. So my whole thought is, why is it that politicians, we've got such a bloat in our government? I really do believe that we could do a 90% nullification of what's out there and increase it in the public sector or the private sector, rather than, privatizing or just letting a lot of this stuff go. There's so much in our government that just needs to be cut. And I get it that we're supposed to be, it's a service contract to do some minimal things which are in the Constitution. Okay, I'm a constitutional conservative. We need to cut it back, because right now it's so, this is like a Jabba the Hutt moment out there with it just eats everything and it continues to grow and become bigger. And, I look at the politicians and I look at people that have served in the military. Why is it that we have abandoned our, the good law enforcement officers, the good people in the military that got up to defend this country, and we're paying the payment, and what they get out of it is so out of whack. It's incredible. I do think that in order for us to go forward with anything, we're going to have to remove these people who have engaged in unjust gain, as well as refusing to prosecute the breaking of the law. I'm going to ponder some of the things you brought forward, but I'm not a term limits person, and I'll tell you why. I'm a term limits person, not. I'm going to switch that around. I do believe that we have to have term limits, because if the government is that convoluted that you have to either commit to it to be a career to serve, you cut the we the people part of it right out again, and you've got a ruling class. And I'm absolutely opposed to that. And so if we cut down the amount of government and we simplify this, and I mean really simplify it, I believe that any American should be able to have the ability to run for the president. The office of president. I believe that anyone should be able to run for the office of governor or any of these offices. Otherwise, all we have is a ruling class, a professional industry, and who is not only in charge of running all of these departments, but that is voting themselves pay raises on the back. There's a disconnect. If we continue on the path, we are continuing to move we the people away from these offices. And that's a problem. It's a huge problem. So I'm a person that does believe in term limits, because we got to simplify the process. That would be something that, in my opinion, continues to feed the beast that we have out there, instead of simplifying what we have and stopping the slave class of people, which is we the people. We've become nothing more than a slave class to political elites. And so I think that there's a way of doing this. And I think somebody who is really adept at negotiating, because there is negotiating happen. A good negotiator creates win-win solutions for everyone. It's like, I don't believe in the Democrat side, which says, we should all get the same pay. We should all have the same pay. No, I don't believe that, because a doctor that goes to school and puts in many, many hours is most definitely has a skill set, a marketable skill set, which there should be, as you invest in yourself, as you become more adept. A person who is a doctor is not on the same pay scale as, say, somebody who works a fast food restaurant. There's a skill set there. There's an expertise there, right? And I do believe that. I don't believe in universal income whatsoever, because that encourages people just to be lazy and say it doesn't make any difference. It makes our best of the best weaker, and it encourages people not to engage in improving themselves and becoming more useful for society. Okay, and I do believe that. But a win-win scenario would include being able to compensate people, have health care out there. If we weren't just giving it to these corporations, the corporations have throttled us, have slit the neck of America. And there's some problems that I think we could achieve some really mutually beneficial end game here with somebody who understands how not only business works, but running the state as a business, which should be able to benefit all people of the state, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, not just people who have high expertise levels, not just people who are in office, but people who are willing to sacrifice to actually bring it back into line. And it's going to take sacrifice on everyone's part to redo and pull this nation back together. Right now, I don't see anybody in the Republican Party that has the brain power or the fortitude in order to pull it back in. I don't see it in the Democrat Party either. I really don't. And it's gonna take a real unusual skill set in order to navigate the landmines politically within the industry. I mean, we need to be filing antitrust and holding people to it. We're going to need to go after criminals. We're going to have to do something about mass deportation day that needs to happen, because they're draining the coffers away from Americans. And as an oath of office, a public functionary is there to protect we the people, not we the everybody who walks across the border, who is using children as a shield to walk in here to enrich what they're all involved in, which is human trafficking. Every one of them that has done nothing goes back to the human trafficking. So it's a complex thing, but I'm a term limits person. I think we need to go and sit in office and then go home and make it a real job for ourselves instead of continuing to entrench ourselves in a non-challengeable position. But
yeah, well, I think I'll agree to disagree with you on the term limits issue. The problem is, the way I look at it is, it hasn't changed. The term limits hasn't changed anything in Michigan. If anything, it's worse now than it ever was.
Did you know the dynamic there is that they actually did it just like they've done the proposals, and it really isn't a term limit thing. What they've done is they've allowed people to stay in longer, but move to other positions. So there are no term limits. When they talked about term limits, there really aren't any.
Well, they are, but I mean, I know about the recent. Forgetting the term, the recent thing that was on the ballot initiative, and it did pass. And actually, I voted for it because, like I said, I'm actually a fan of politicians being able to move around and have that expertise in the government. But the thing that I'm proposing with campaign finance reform, I think, really fixes the issue, because you want to be able to. So the first problem is, we're not selecting good candidates to get into office. That's the first problem.
True.
And then once they get there, they become corrupted by the system. So the thing is, how do you get good people first? And this is back to my argument of why you have to pay them more, and then also eliminate their ability to have portfolio investments or financial incentives outside the system. And if you take that away, you get someone who's pure, because otherwise they're always going to be financially corrupted. So you need to be able to recruit top talent. You need to get top talent into those positions. You need to take away the other financial incentives so they're pure to the people that they represent. And then you're fine. If we did that, then we can also experiment with a term limit issue. I mean, that I'm not totally against it, but I think that the root of the problem is, and how you solve the corruption problem is, you need to recruit top talent. Not only do you need to recruit top talent, you need to find a way to take out their financial incentives for them to be corrupted. And if you do those two things first, I think the term limits might have more impact or further refine the ability for these people to be corrupted. But until we have the campaign finance reform issue, it becomes a game of the PAC money, the super PAC money, just like the RNC, fulfilling their last contract to the state, to MyGov here recently. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the system, right? And that's what's taking place. But that kind of the swamp-like politics are not going to go away unless we have campaign finance reform, because all the money around party politics and PACs is driven by the swamp kind of system that we have, campaign finance. And if we have campaign finance reform, all that goes away.
I'll agree with you with the fact that everything's broken right now. But I would love to see, I guess in my perfect world, I would love to see people that trust God enough to go ahead and take a bite of a loss, knowing that they're doing it for the right reason. And I think that cuts it out of it, for everyone, where we can say, I believe in this nation enough, and the people that I'm standing here, that becomes my driving force rather than the money part of it. And I think that's a critical distinction in the people that should that should be serving in a service position. And I agree that people should be paid for their expertise. I'm not saying that, you know, somebody who's gone to school for, you know, 12 years, it's like, that's a problem with the doctors and how the doctors, the malpractice have literally stripped away anything from doctors and able to function as a physician. So they go into these big corporate healthcare scenarios so that they can help share the malpractice and all the other things instead of just being able to practice the way that they used to be. The problem is that, like, the convolution in the system, the regulation, the extra things. So if we start cutting all this regulation back and we can pull things back into whack pretty easily, quite honestly, in cutting things back. And that way, those people who have an expertise, I really do believe in a win-win scenario here. I really do believe it, but it's going to be in cutting the bloat out of the system first and foremost. And then, I don't know if you can do that with people who are motivated. Their first motivation is money rather than first motivation is service, until we get things back into order. So, like, I'm a fan of pausing all taxes. I think we should pause all taxes until we get this thing figured out, because
that's a huge problem though for the debt. I mean, that's the problem is the Federal Reserve just prints the money whether or not you have the tax cut. I mean, that's a whole different issue. I think
it works.
Actually, in terms of policy, the solution here that makes the most sense is that you actually get rid of all federal taxes except for a consumption tax, which is a sales tax.
I agree with you with that one.
Tax. I'm a huge fan of the fair tax. And it eliminates business-to-business tax, and then you actually get a tax break on food at the individual level, food and clothing, and it'll stimulate the economy. And
I love that. I love that. A consumption.
My dad. So the funny is, like, I grew up in this weird. My mother was a Republican, very religious woman. My dad, you know, religious but not so much. But he was a Democrat. But he was more like the Kennedy Democrat kind. And he was a huge supporter of the fair tax. He was very active in the bill back in the early 90s when it first came to the table, I guess. And he was trying to get all the other Democrats in his caucus to agree to supporting it. And they all thought I was, you know, aggressive, all the stupid crap that you hear. And I think my dad was on the right side of that issue. And I believed it back then. And I read up the paperwork back then, the old MIT studies. And you look at the further economic work that's been done. And Ed Dowd, who's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s economist, or on his you know, economist serving on his board, or whatever you want to call it, his election campaign committee, is a real smart guy, and he and I discussed this. And it's getting rid of sales tax, income tax, where the government's trying to structure this and play games with the economy. Also, getting rid of the Federal Reserve solves a lot of problems, but I think you do one first. You actually do, because you're going to have a buffer. You do the tax cut for, you do not the tax cut, but you change the tax code first. Go to the consumption tax, and then you see how it goes for about 3 or 4 years, and then you talk about then scaling back the Fed. You don't want to do all of this at once because it could cause too much uncertainty in financial markets and for trade, and you sometimes just can't predict how things will go. So you don't ever want to make too many major changes at once. You can only do one or two. You could end the Fed first. You could do this consumption tax. Ideally, you'd want to do both.
Well, I agree with you with the consumption. The only thing that is actually constitutionally allowable is a consumption tax and or a tax. Property taxes are illegal, and income tax is illegal. Income tax, the taxing of the businesses is actually a legal way if it's a gain. You can't tax on, there's certain things. I mean, we have to follow the law. And the point being is that they're breaking the law the way that they're taxing people, and then they're writing themselves more compensation where our people are starving. And if you can't put the people of the United States first and foremost, then they haven't earned the seat that they're in. And so I really do like the consumption tax because it's lawful. It's the only one that's lawful right now. And, you know, towards the individual, because you can't tax on trade for your time. You can only tax, the way that is only allowable is to tax the businesses when they make a gain. That's it. And it has to be a gain off the state. So the big corporations are really problem.
You get the environmentalists on board with this. I mean, the other thing is, because it's a consumption tax, it encourages people to consume less if they're trying to save money. And if you do have outstanding debt, there is sort of a one-time boost to the economy, which happens because if you have debt outstanding, what happens is you get to pay down that debt now tax-free in the future. So any debt incurred, like on a credit card or a line of credit, okay, you're not paying that down with a taxed income. You're paying that down with your full paycheck. So really, it doubles your purchasing power overnight to pay down your debt, and that's a huge advantage to this making the one-time conversion. Is it actually helps solve America's debt problem.
There's a lot of things that we can do to actually. So I'm gonna say that we agree on some things and we disagree on others. But I think this is a very good discussion to have, because that this is because I know I'm going to get attacked. It's like, he's talking about this. It always happens. But I
get attacked all the time. So I mean, it's pretty much if you're a good scientist in the government and you work in national security, intelligence, all this stuff, you're only doing your job correctly if everyone's attacking you. So when I used to show up in these government meetings, I'd get it from all sides: the lobbyists, the politicians, the bureaucrats. They all give me a hard time, but I was just raising
you have to talk with everyone.
What we need to do.
The point is in America is that we talk with everyone, and we're never going to agree 100% on anything. You take something here and go, oh, that's a good idea. You take something here and say, oh, that's kind of a good idea. And hopefully we take all these ideas and all of a sudden come out into something that's workable for everyone by listening to good ideas and not getting stuck in our own ignorance, because we all do it. We all get stuck in the way that we think it should be done. And if we can get rid of our preconceived notions and say, let's just look at face value of what this person is seeing. He's coming from the other side of the table from where I am right now. And let's see if there's any merit or even one or two grains of things I can agree with, and see if we can make this work. But our tax structure sucks. There's no two ways about it. I mean, it absolutely sucks. And it's unconstitutional. It's illegal. And when we come back to the point of what's legal and what's non-legal, we have so many illegal activities going on, that the only way I ever see to get into this is nullification, simplifying it so we don't have so many layers of middlemen that are taking a cut of everything and taking it away from we the people. The end benefit has got to go to we the people. End of story. That's one of those non-negotiable things that I'll stand on, So,
all right, Donna, we're gonna have to get together face to face sometime soon. I got to get going soon, but I just want to say this: you just have to be objective about where we are today in our country. We didn't get here overnight. We got here over the course of really roughly about 90 to 100 years, and it's the change to fix it will not happen peacefully overnight, and you have to have objective benchmarks and figure out how we're going to get there. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't agree with all of it, but the thing is, you can't get there unless we make fundamental steps in the process first, and then you start talking about what happens not over my lifetime or your lifetime. We're talking probably 4 generations into the future. We should be playing the long game of what we're strategically trying to accomplish, because you talk about ending the Federal Reserve. Realistically, think about how much political power you have to gain to make that happen with our corrupt system. We're actually talking like a 40 to 60 year plan.
Well, I don't know. I think that if we get attacked here, which is the plan that we're on right now, is watch Americans get attacked on American soil. We're all going to get it real smart, real quick, and when we're stuck into survival and have to figure out how to work together. And I would say that that's not out of the realm of possibility that we could in fact change overnight.
No, that's a scenario. Scenario planning. It could go a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got to be able to pivot a little bit, but certainly talk to and listen to people we disagree with. And I really appreciate the discussion, a very respectful discussion that we had today, coming at things from different ways. And I think that this is really helpful, because if we can educate each other on what we know, not stuck on what we think we know, but listening to things as a thoughtful process of finding the answer. Because if we knew the answer on coming from lots of different, completely ends of the spectrum, it's either this way or the highway or this way, the highway, that we're going to have exactly what we have right now, which is nothing. And we have nothing right now. Nobody can get on the same page. We can't even move that line 1 inch, because people are guarding their castles right now. And you know what? And all they're doing is sitting. We got a castle here, we got a castle here, and we're just shooting back and forth at each other as we're destroying each other's castle. And and that's destroying America. We can't do that. We got to talk. So, and I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate that. And let's get together sometime. And if you want to come in again, I would love to have more discussions with you, because I like to hear what you have to say. We need to listen to each other and learn from each other. You truly have a long background, and there's things that we need to hear that you have to contribute, as well as every single other person out there. So I thank you for that. So I'm gonna let you go, and then we'll talk later. But anyhow, let me bring your book up one more time here a minute, and because I think that this is the most significant thing that has come out of the discussion today, quite honestly, in my opinion, is what is the lies about Wuhan and your book right there. So you can go to andrewhuff.com. I'm not out here trying to make money for people. People have to do that all on their own, but like I do, I don't.
You can also get the book off of Amazon or Target or Walmart. I've got a pretty good book contract. You can get it from all the big box retailers. So
right.
You probably get it cheaper off. If you're trying to save money, you probably get it from Amazon.
Yeah, right. But I think it's important that we put our time into educating each other on what we do and what we can agree with, and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we have a few things we disagree with. So anyhow, there you go. So you have a great day today, and thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas, Donna.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see. You know what? I'm going to see if I can bring Karen on a minute. Let me see if Karen's out there. I know Karen's out there because she's listening this morning. So hold on here a minute, and I'm going to see if we can throw Karen the link. Karen, you want to come on? Because I got a feeling she's got a lot to say right now. So hang on a minute. Donna's site, BNN is Rumble. Donna's site is down. BNN Rumble, Gateway Pundit. Well, thanks, Charlotte. I appreciate that. We're going to keep going on this for right now. I'm going to see if Karen can come on real quick. And give her a chance to say a few words, and then we're going to, yep. There's my buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, really good. So I thought I'd bring you on a minute, and I'm going to let you talk for just a second here, and I'm going to take a real quick break, and then I want to hear your comments on this, because I thought this was a really good show today. There's so much going on. So can you fill in for about 3 minutes?
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you.
This is how it works with Donna and I. We just fly by the seat
on the stove.
We fly by the seat of our pants sometimes. Well, what I appreciate is that Donna is open to hearing different opinions and perspectives on things, and is willing to listen and take in things, and then speak her mind where she differs on something. And that's a important component of critical thinking. In bringing on Warren again, I thought it was really interesting that he brought in brand new information about connections that the party still has to funding that a lot of people will still have a problem with. So that was interesting. Another thing that the doctor was talking about was funding, and I noticed that he repeatedly says we need money, we need money, we need money. In order to win, you must have money. The one who wins is the one who has more money. And Donna and I have talked about that a number of times. I really wish that wasn't the way we had to do things. And I think the parties, not just the GOP, but every party, is going to have a problem with this now, because as we were talking about, I think earlier this week, you have some good people in your communities who are well qualified to run for office. Most of those people are not willing to do so because, number one, money. As he said, they're making more money in another job. Well, running for office means that you have to make a personal sacrifice sometimes, as Trump has done. You may not make as much money, but if you are interested in the common good, that won't make a difference. You also should not feel compelled to take money from your community in order to ensure you win an election. An election is not a win, in my perspective. It is a public acceptance of your volunteer spirit to serve.
I agree with that. It should never be about money. And when it becomes about money, we get exactly what we have right now. You are dead on over the target.
It's an election should not be a competition, and it certainly shouldn't be a shelection, or a competition about who can fundraise. You're taking money out of the community. Like, this is what fires me up right now. How much money does the GOP raise each year? Just the GOP, but collect it between all the parties, and how much good could be done for the communities in other ways if people were not just giving money to,
to centralize power,
signs and flyers and all that garbage that goes with a campaign. You could be saving children.
Yep.
You could be stopping human trafficking. You could be feeding people. You could be housing people. You could be developing properties that are falling apart. You could be cleaning the environment. But no, you got to put it into signage or commercials or wherever it goes into the corrupt system, because we know that money isn't going to just marketing.
It's an industry. And this is the problem. It's like, you don't make money off the government. You go and you shouldn't. This is one of those things that all of us should consider a service. Go in there and figure out, be smart enough to make your own money somewhere, but not off the government. Now, we're going to have to hire a few people who have some expertise. But if you cut 90% of the government away, which is mostly graft and corruption, regulation, trying to regulate so that they can get an office, they can have a seat at the table and now make money from within the government. And then they go back into industry, and then they go back into the government, back and forth, back and forth. This is a big money game. We need to have people that are willing to serve and trust God to provide. There you go. There's the answer right there.
Oh, and so what if you get a pay cut, but if you're still doing well enough to get by for a while, for a year or two or 4, when you serve, then your reward is not money for that. Your reward is your service to the community and to hopefully to God.
I agree with that 100%. 100%. Money in politics is a bad thing because it just leads to more things. But I want to show you something cool. Hey, I've been canning.
Is that applesauce?
That's applesauce. So I've been canning, and so I've been canning applesauce and meat. Okay, that's canned meat. So that's chuck roast. So in case anybody wants, I had to show you that a minute. So, but yeah, the service, are you feeding anybody? Are people out there actually doing anything on a daily basis? I mean, you could call a neighbor, you could be concerned, you could try to develop some relationships with people. Are you looking to see what help they need? And hey, offer to bring them a meal or something, because there's always somebody that's in need, right? And I just don't get this me, got to get this cash in my pocket, and the one with the biggest pile of crap at the end of life wins, as we're all bankrupt and watching our nation fall to pieces. It's incredible to me. So
whenever I hear a party person saying, well, we got to raise funds so and so can win because they're going to be good, and I'm like, brakes on. Yep. And I'm not alone in this. And I get why they're saying that. Number one, because that's always the way it's been done in their experience. Number two, that's where they believe the system is now. As I was posting about when you were actively campaigning, shouldn't be about that. It's not about splitting the vote. You vote based on a virtuous, qualified candidate, the end. And if they have to be all about raising funds in order to get that qualified candidate in, that's not a focus on God, and I can't get behind that anymore. We have to do things differently if we're going to end up with a different country. You're going about this the wrong way.
Turn around, you're backing your head into a brick wall. It's not working, and it's never going to work this way. Get out of the cult. Leave the farm. It's a cult mentality. The cults are running the state.
So what I'm thinking is, and he did hit on some things that he was talking about.
I love him.
Violence.
He's amazing. I love him. He's got so much amazing information to talk about, Dr. Andrew Huff. I mean, I just absolutely adore him.
Well, he's thinking, the violence aspect. Well, one party is more violent than another. Well, that's right. But I think also you have conservatives who they are the ones buying the guns and the ammo right now. And they are going to the gun range. And they are learning how to defend their homes. You just don't always hear it from them. Sometimes you do, and there are people who are all about, I gotta talk about how good I am with my gun and I know what to do to protect my family and you ought to do it too. But it's a bragging kind of way of doing things. But there are a lot of people that are doing all of that quietly, because that's the way a lot of conservatives are. They just want to go about their business unless somebody messes with them. But this idea of the Civil War, if you haven't heard about that, I saw it posted yesterday. I'll go find the link and share it on Telegram. But that's about Obama having an influence on a movie, and you can see the influences where it's all like there's a lot of narratives on there. And supposedly he has influence on another movie that's supposed to be about a civil war process of some sort. And it's just narrative stuff. It's just what they want to see, this projection garbage. But I don't think America is headed that way because, in part, I think we've had a lot of protections in place already, because I see how it's going in Europe. And I see how it's going here, and there's a major contrast. And maybe we're just behind, but I think we have been protected from a lot of the violence that other countries have been seeing in their community. Because in certain places in Europe, the people are in the streets almost every day, and they're getting more violent toward the police, and they're getting more violent toward the government because they've had enough. And I am not a component or a proponent of that. I think we have to, when it starts looking like that, we need to stay home, because it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to make anything better. That's not how you do grassroots. That is exactly what they want, because if you look at the next step in what those countries are experiencing, you're going to find that the police is becoming a police state. They're going to have to turn their police into military and bring the military in and squash the people and force them to stay at home, and they'll lose all their rights. If you want that to become your America, then keep talking about war, or keep talking about having us go into the street and try to create some kind of violent thing. That's not how we're going to do it. And I think he's starting to see that that's the narrative being built up. And he's, because he's thinking ahead. He's talking about the National Guard, and they're here in our communities. They don't want to do that. Well, yeah, we don't want them to be in that position where they have to try to make that kind of choice. I don't think we're going to get there, because I hope we're smarter than that. And I think that part of this awakening process is just to figure out the difference, where we can raise our voices and be heard and turn our government around in some other way than through violence. And Trump has been also
crazy.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Trump is also very adamant about supporting the police. And that's an indication to me that he's thinking along the same lines, that he doesn't want people. When he invited people to the Capitol, he made it very clear he wanted it to be peaceful, and he wanted a peaceful transition. So if you're a Trump fan, listen to what he's telling you. He is not telling you to be violent in the streets and rise up and oppose your government. It's not what he's saying.
No, that's what Satanists do. And let me tell you, I had an interaction yesterday with two individuals who were unhinged in ways I can't even tell you. I mean, we were doing work in one of our units, and I went there to protect my workers and also to oversee the work. Okay, I want to make sure it was right. And they started right off insulting everyone. And it was like, so we're working as they're absolutely being aggressive, abusive, and crazy. They were absolutely out of line. I mean, it was incredible. And they were trying to start a fight. They really
I
were.
was gonna say it sounds like they're poking the bear.
They were trying to poke the bear, and they kept circling. So when we left, they kept circling our cars. And I mean, it was hostile. And this is someone who hasn't paid rent. They're way behind. They got in there. They're not actually anything. They're squatters. And so as a squatter, and there's this is coming to the end, but at any rate, the people can poke you, but that doesn't mean that you even respond. And something that came out of the day for me was, you know what, I did something immediately after that was probably would be considered a really good thing, but I'm not going to tell you what it was. But it was an act of kindness. Let's put it that way, a very an unusual act of kindness. Okay. So, and I got thinking about it yesterday, and it's like the war we're in, and I want to come back around to the fact that God is in control and that we're here to serve God in the name of Jesus Christ. And that is apart and away from anything out there. My treasure is not here on this earth. Not at all. I'm here to work. I've been that way since I was a little kid. And, you know, it's like, you know, I think we all get into things where we think that this is what we're supposed to do until we get a little older and realize, all right, so I'm not going to follow Stupidville or the way things are done just because it's the way they're done. Not going to do it. It's not my motivation. It's not my goal. But I think that something that we have to remember is that because we're in a spiritual war right now, we are being goaded, we are being tested, we are being pushed to the limits of what a human being honestly can endure, because people are fairly weak. We're, you know, in general, people are very, very weak, and we're corrupt, and we're sinful. Through the grace and the strength of God, we can make it through anything. Okay. Our strength does not come from ourselves. We are not God. We are not many gods. We are human beings, and that's all we are. We're flawed. All of us are flawed. But when we turn to God and turn our lives over to God on every single plane, whether it be money, whether we put it into reaction or, you know, how we would react, even if we're feeling like we're being attacked and threatened. You know, yesterday I was absolutely being threatened yesterday. It happens a lot, actually. People would be shocked where you are in a situation, either in a perceived place of being cornered and a clear and present threat. How are you going to respond? Are you going to be like, grab your torches and pitchforks, or are you going to get smarter than that? And something that came to mind after my day yesterday and watching my crew be threatened. They were insulted. They were threatened. These crazy freaking Antifa boneheads, psychopaths. They're psychopaths, and I'm going to say demon possessed. They're demon possessed. Literally one of the sweetest guys you'll ever want to meet. When he was done doing some work there before, which is why I went, because these people are abusive beyond all belief. All belief they're abusive. Literally followed him off the property as he was trying to continue to work, and screaming and yelling at him, calling everybody a pedophile, which is a lie. And this is just the average normal people just wanting to go to work and do the right thing, screaming up and down the road, pedophile, pedophile. It's like, I hate to say it, it's like Chuck calling CPS on Warren because he said the F word. That's a Saul Alinsky tactic, right? And we've seen it across our nation. You don't do those sort of things. It's unhinged. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's out of control. It's not allowing somebody that you disagree with to have an opinion, instead of forcing your opinion on someone else. That you don't have the right to do that. You know, you can do it, but we're going to call you idiots for it and call you out for it, right? If I disagree with somebody, I'll tell them, but it's not like I'm going to shove my beliefs down their throat because they have the right. Well, anyhow, so I did this random act of kindness. I went out and had lunch with my daughter, and we had a really nice lunch, actually. But the more I pondered this and how to deal with this, because I think this is how I've done conflict resolution for years. I'm not afraid of conflict. That's how you actually bring people together, right? And what it really brought to mind is that we are, in fact, in a spiritual war. There's demons. I mean, there's demons involved in it. If you can't see them, I'm sorry, pray for discernment. But we absolutely are in a war, and it's a spiritual war. So how do you fight a spiritual war? Well, I'll tell you how to fight it. The only weapons that we have some weapons. The only weapons we have, and I would encourage everyone to do this. If you're feeling attacked, start praying for anyone who is the largest loss to Satan himself. Start praying for those people that are not saved, and pray for their salvation. Pray for peace. Pray for reconciliation, and pray for peace. And start quoting scripture. But you got to know scripture in order to quote it, and or get out your Bible and read it. And you're going to watch things peel and fall away from you. And then also, anytime you get goaded, anytime somebody attacks you, do something to counter that in kindness, in love, where you're spreading kindness and love. Don't react out of hate or fear, but react out of, okay, you just spoke me. Guess what? I'm going to just go and in your face. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to smile. I'm going to put a smile on my face. I'm going to tell people that I love them. I'm going to do something to lighten somebody else's burden. When we fight back with kindness and goodness, refusing to jump into crazy world with these people, we just won the war right there. So turn towards God. You think Jesus, and I thought about it. I'm like, wow, Jesus, when he was being spit on, beaten and such, did he respond? He stood silent, because you are, in fact, they're condemning themselves. You don't have to say a word. They literally are condemning themselves for everyone to see. Now, it doesn't mean you're always quiet. You do speak the truth, right? Speak the truth.
They know not what they do.
Yeah, speak the truth. But do it in a way that's not putting you in crazy world, because they're going to get you to do something stupid if you're engaged, if your emotions are engaged. That's when we win. What are we going to do? Have a civil war and start killing each other? That's exactly what they want. It goes into the eliminating people, and they're going to try to get us to do it for them. They want us to do their dirty work, and then they sit back and they laugh, because that's what demons do. And they're demons. It's a demon. They're being taken over. You can see it when somebody's been when somebody's either oppressed or possessed. They're out of control. They're out of control. They're bullying. They are totally out of control. There's no respect there. And it's like setting themselves up, as little gods. They're putting themselves as little gods who have the keys to all righteousness and ego, instead of sitting back going, "I'm gonna let you talk and see what comes out of your mouth," because people need to make the decision up for themselves. They can hear both sides of it, right? We can do it specifically, respectfully. So I would encourage everybody out there, if you're feeling attacked, if you're feeling bad, go tell somebody you love them. Do something positive. Anytime you're attacked, take that as a cue from God to go and do something amazing. Hit Satan. He's a little punk. And his demons, they're a bunch of little loser punks, okay? That fight, that are abusive to people. That's all they are. That's all they got. That's all they have. They're losers. They've already lost. So what are you afraid of? A little backlash? Okay, go ahead. You know what? We're going to plead the blood of Jesus Christ over all of this, our Lord and our Savior, God's only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. There's peace. There is peace wherever God is. And we can speak the name of Jesus. There's always peace when Jesus is there. And we can be that. We're supposed to be his body on this earth. We can do that. So with that said, I'm going to pull something up a minute, because
high prices decide if your family is allowed to stay warm this winter. Here's how a former NASA
here we go. And I'm going to play this because I think this is important, and we'll come back to talking about it in just a second. We're going to speak Jesus.
Ephesians 6, 10 through 20. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit, with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints, and also for me, that words may be given to me in opening my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. Isaiah 46, verse 4. Even to your old age, I am he, and to gray hairs, I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear. I will carry, and will save. Psalm 34, 22. The Lord redeems the life of his servants. None of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. Psalm 119, 114. You are my hiding place and my shield. I hope in your word. Psalm 59, 16. But I will sing of your strength. I will sing aloud of your steadfast love in the morning. For you have been to me a fortress and a refuge in the day of my distress.
There you go. In our day of our distress, we can go towards God Almighty, and he will be our fortress and our protection. So, and we don't have to, we have to act, but we don't have to react. And there's a difference there. So what say you, Karen?
I think that's great. I think the tool that I found that works for me is to consider the value in the other person and feel sorry for them. Mm-hmm. Because that keeps my temper in check. If somebody is ranting at me, and I think maybe that really started for me with the vaccine thing, because I feel sorry for the people who were victimized by that. You know, some other people are like, well, I'm a pureblood, like I am better than someone else because I made a different choice. And I don't think that's the right attitude. I don't like to use that word at all because that's how it's been used. It may be a great word, but it's been used to separate people, to divide people. You're a pureblood or you're a fool. Well, no, those people are victims. And you just happen to see the victimization and avoid it. But I feel really sorry for those people, and they are suffering. And some of them have a really bad attitude, and they but even so, they just do not see. They've been blinded. They cannot see, they cannot hear. That's that battle of good versus evil. And maybe like Pharaoh, their hearts are hardened. But I feel sorry for them all. And that brings out the love and compassionate part of me rather than the judgmental part of me that wants to then take action and say, well, you were wrong and you were a fool, or you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't talk to me that way. I'm better than you, etc., etc. That's bringing the negativity in an ungodly way. But if your focus is on God, then you'll feel sorry for people who have separated themselves from him or who have made bad choices for themselves and their family. You know, I have family that I'm sure has made the wrong decision there, and it's caused division. And that's unfortunate. That's not a sole story in my family. It happens everywhere. It's just been one other tool to divide. And it's a tool that destroys. And those people are such victims that they're still dying. They're going to be losing their lives. And it's going to be very destructive for the rest of society for years to come. That is a sadness. That is not something to be so just angry about. I think anger is the energy for change, and it can be directed in a positive way. But if you're using it against people that are actually victims, that doesn't help anybody. If you're compassionate, then you can move into a place of love and godly spirit and like you said, peace. Christ said, I didn't come here to bring peace. Y'all gonna fight over me. I'm paraphrasing. But he did say he did not come to bring peace. So this peace and goodwill toward men, yeah. But keep in mind that that's what Jesus said. Jesus did not say, I come to bring peace, especially at Christmas time. He acknowledged that people were going to have divisions, and some of that was going to be over him. So if you want to project and wear Christ on you, then you cannot do that while being judgmental and overly critical and emotional in a negative way toward other people. So that strategy helps me to keep my emotions in check and to observe people in a more objective way. And I'm an emotional person, so it's not always easy for me. There are certain things like the abuse of kids and animals. That's a weakness for me. You're gonna get me riled up real quick. But no, I'm sorry you feel that way.
No, that's I think just bringing us together and is there, you can't have light and darkness. They can't coexist. Yeah, it just can't. There are certain things that cannot coexist. You cannot coexist with somebody who only serves self. That's a psychopath. That's somebody who is capable of read a story yesterday where a guy was picked up he was going to a place where he planned to rape a 10-month-old boy. Oof. And the people that were undercover caught him before it was a setup, it was a setup, which in this case, this man was going to show up somewhere to rape a 10-month-old boy. And it came out later that he'd raped some 3-year-olds and said, well, they started it. And the article about it is kind of horrifying. Just he thinks this is okay. That is not a human person that does that. That's a demon. A demon is a person who would rape a 10-month-old boy or a 3-year-old boy or girl. And he had sex and sexual contact with kids up to 12 years old. And so nothing wrong with this. Nothing. We cannot coexist with that. I won't coexist with that. That is so patently wrong that for anybody to say, well, he's minor attracted person, we're just going to give him a pass on that. No, we're not. He is there. This is a sickness, a scourge, a cancer on this world when people do not protect children, but use them for their own good. And this is the problem. When I talk to people, one of the first things I see is, do they use fellow Americans to accomplish their goals, or did they find ways to create solutions for problems? There's only two ways to go with it. Either you use people and you make money off of them, or you're an opportunist. That's an opportunist, right? Or you're looking for problems to solve and then creating solutions. There's the dividing line right there. That's about as simple as I can water it down for people. You don't make money off of other people. You have the right to make money, but you do it by creating solutions for problems.
I saw an interview last night with a pedophile that got caught in a sting, and he crossed state lines, so he got a federal charge for that too. He thought he was going to have some kind of relationship with a 13-year-old girl, and when they got him in the interview, he was like, "Oh, you caught me. I'm so wrong. I'm evil. Please don't arrest me. I can't handle prison," because he had some kind of physical issue. And when they started asking him for details, and they're saying, "Look, here's some wording in this chat that indicates this and that and the other thing that you had," he sent him a picture of a penis, and I don't know if it was his or somebody else's, but he had, when they went into his computer, he had over 100 images of pedophilia. But he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't," and when they asked him specific questions, "Why did you do this? What did you intend to do?" "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know." Yeah, you do know. There are certain things that he would answer freely, and then when it came to real serious criminal crossing the line questions, suddenly he didn't know. And yeah, you do know, but you just can't admit it because he knows how evil it is. And like I said the other day, one of the things I learned about human trafficking is how many of these pedophiles get into younger and younger children is because they can't get the high. Maybe it started with watching women on pornography, and then it becomes, well, I can't get the same high off of that, I'm going to go and pay a prostitute. And then it becomes, well, I can't get the same high off of that, maybe I'll try a 17-year-old girl. And it works its way down because they can't get the same high until they make it more and more exciting, and that's how they end up with very young children. So by the time they get to the status of this man that you were describing, they've been through all kinds of other horrid stuff, and nothing really phases them. And I still can't wrap my mind around how it's possible. But
look how sick it is, though. I'm going to go to your channel. This is Karen the Riveter on Telegram. And look at how sick this is. It's about hurting others. That's what rape's about. Rape is about hurting others instead of holding, instead of holding other people in regard. It's about power and dominion over each other. It's not about serving. And when they have to go to younger and younger people to destroy something that's good, it's a destruction. It's evil. This is evil. So here's some of the posts on human trafficking. Children want to feel loved, accepted, secure, popular, nurtured, understood, heard, attractive, and smart. Predators know this. They prey on these vulnerabilities through tech, gaming, to develop relationships. 93% of children who are sexually abused are victimized by someone they know. The predator may be a coach, a teacher, a scout leader, pastor, or family member. Parents and children should know how to recognize a safe adult from someone who shouldn't be trusted. You want to comment on that, or do you want to?
Yeah, real quick. The one right before that was about grooming, the concepts of grooming. So this is how they get children from the start. They'll invest in them. They'll spend a lot of time getting to know the child, where their weaknesses are, and how to very, very slowly become that trusted person. If they need someone who trusts them, who they can share secrets with, who shows them that they have value. If they're not getting that in their family, that predator will become that for them.
So
then
that same cult mentality. It's a cult mentality of, gaining trust and or gathering favor so that the person will blindly follow them.
a lot of that will take place online. The next slides are more about images, they're memes, are about children who can be groomed by people they know or people that their parents know.
Anything that steps in between parents and children, is, we got a problem there. And I mean, there are parents that are trafficking their kids, but there needs to be more time with parents and kids. That's why I am adamantly opposed to all this extracurricular stuff. It's just a babysitter, and it's handing your kids over to somebody else to raise. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And it's part of the engineering of our nation to separate parents and children. So let's just give them like a million little extracurricular clubs, sports events, and this, that, and the other thing. So the parents become less and less important, and they're handed over to people who may or may not really care about that kid. It's all about themselves and their careers or the money they make or this, that, and the other thing, not somebody who's willing to die for those kids.
It's a pool where pedophiles thrive.
Yes, it is. They'll go to playgrounds. Pedophiles and predators go to where those people they're preying on are. All right. That's the way it is. Psychopaths. They're psychopaths, and they have no empathy, and they don't care who they hurt. Now, talk about this one. A safe adult, as someone who genuinely cares about the well-being of a child, does kind things without expectations, encourages other healthy relationships. Bingo. You do not step in front of the natural order of God or the relationship. You do not interject anything in between that parent and that child. You want that to be the primary and the most important. This isn't a popularity contest where you try to win the favor of a child. No, you try to fight for that family's best good. Motivates a child to achieve goals without being overbearing or forceful, makes a child feel safe and comfortable, respects boundaries, will alert property authorities if a child needs help. Now, there's another one, because most of our authorities are where the pedophiles also go. Look at what they did with Laura Silsby from Haiti, who got caught trafficking kids, and they put her in charge of Amber Alert, for gosh sakes, over in Idaho. So shows physical affection only when appropriate or initiated by the child. Treats all children present and equal. Spends time with a child around other safe adults. Respects a child's right to privacy, especially concerning nudity. Any social media contact is minimal, public and or conducted with the knowledge and consent of a parent. Avoids inappropriate conversations. Respects parents' rules and boundaries concerning safety. There you go. It goes back to, do they respect that and protect that relationship with the parent? A sexual predator is one who touches excessively, especially near legs, chest, stomach, genital regions. Singles out a favorite child, giving them special attention or even gifts. Searches for reasons to be alone with the child. Babysit, gives rides, holds sleepovers. Lacks modesty around children, which may include undressing in front of them or walking in during the restroom or use or changing. Privately contacts a child using social media, especially with personal, frequent or secret causes. Discusses sex acts or body parts. Questions parents' rules or boundaries. Going back, undermining the parent once again. If you observe predatory behavior, remove child from their presence or care. Gently ask the child if the person ever made them feel uncomfortable, unsafe, ever touched or talked about private parts, ever contacted them on social media, or if there ever was asked to help them keep a secret. Consult Shared Hopes Warning Signs poster for more about how children may act if being groomed or trafficked. For professional advice, I don't know if RAINN hotline or NCMEC hotline. These are the use of these hotlines for local law enforcement or other relevant authorities to report predatory behavior. I got a problem with some of that right there. I'm going to tell you why. And it's because a lot of these organizations are staffed with people now, and I can't confirm or confirm that any of these are any good.
Yeah.
Because it's just like the UN had 60,000 people that were abusing children within their ranks. This is where they go. They go into places where they have access to children. I've got a gal that I know in Grand Rapids here who was trafficked. The first time she was raped was 10 years old. She was gang raped at 14. She was started to be passed around by the police at 18. So you're going to have to really use some serious discernment on what is a real threat and what's a made up one. And also,
then who do you contact? That's what I included those because they were on a flyer, and that flyer was provided at the America's Future event.
I question everything, even something.
Yeah, I
like
do
that
too. I do too, and that's why I included. I wrote it out as it was, but I included a couple other websites, and I included all the options of local law enforcement, etc. Because you need to know, like, there are some people I would more rather contact somebody I've already made contact with. Like, if I had Tara's number, I would say, hey, what do I do? What do you think I should do? Who should I call? Then call 911.
Yeah.
Because I know my sheriff in my county, he's not talking about human trafficking. He's probably part of the problem. So if the sheriff department comes out and they start talking about various things that they can do, they're probably not, I shouldn't say probably, it's possible that it could backlash on a parent, because as I reported the other day, that happens too. So your local law enforcement may be a part of the problem or an enemy that will make your situation even worse. But if you don't know what to do or where else to go, you might have to try that.
You know what I would do? You know what I would do? I would go to somebody else in the family and rat them out to the people in the family. If it's
somebody you trust.
Somebody you trust. So let's just say that you know that the parents are abusing somebody in the family. You need the people in the family should first and foremost confront that other person in the family. Because, like, let's just say you have an uncle. I'm going to do something that I know is a situation that this happened. An uncle started sleeping with a niece at 12 years old, and other people in the family found out about it and absolutely jumped on board with this. And it was an incredible conviction. Lots and lots of time in prison for this individual. And it needed to happen. It needed to happen. But if you can approach it with going to somebody else in the family and saying, we got a problem, this is what I'm observing here. And so that there's more than, say, one of you, and that you can go to find somebody to start a prosecution if that, in fact, that there's, I think that's not a bad way to go, because it's going to end up not being shoved under the rug. It's okay to bring more people into the situation just to make sure. That doesn't mean that you gang up on them for a reason, but I think that the closer to the situation is much better than going farther away, because farther away, these people aren't going to know. They're going to just react. They're going to grab that kid. And now, like CPS, they're going to grab that kid. Now you've got them into real child trafficking and real threat. So you have to be very, very, very careful on how you approach this. The gal that was passed around by the police at 18 said, anywhere that says we help victims of domestic abuse, she said all of them are into trafficking. That's a pretty bold statement.
Like anything else, anywhere where you have vulnerable people is where a predator wants to go. Mm-hmm. And that was discussed last weekend, where that's a part of learning how to get involved locally. Because you might go to the nearest organization that says, hey, we're helping children, and jump right into it and start supporting them and encouraging other people. And then eventually you might find out they have some predator. And it's just like a political party where you go, you got to clean this house. And when I asked, for example, about the Just Men Arizona, what kind of man are you looking for to do this job? Part of that was vetting. They said they do background checks. They do an intensive interview. So if you start to look into a local organization to get involved with, and they don't vet you like to the T, that's not an organization you probably want to be a part of.
Right.
Because you
You're
want one that's going to be really, really careful to vet check you to make sure you're not a pedophile or a trafficker.
So yeah, that's exactly it. It's like nobody does any checking on people to find out who we're talking to. So they just change their names. You know how many people I found that are running under aliases? A lot. And they don't just have one, they have multiple ones, and they cross state lines. It's incredible. So I mean, until we start prosecuting these worthless bastards that are out there, which is what we have, this is what we're going to have. We're going to be chasing our tails. We're going to be watching them pick off our kids and the situation one at a time because they refuse to prosecute them because they're involved. Anybody that refuses to prosecute child porn and child trafficking and talk about it, they're enabling it. Therefore, they're guilty. And you just can't turn a blind eye. I refuse to accept that. So I'm sorry, but ignorance is I can't accept that. So as an excuse, it's not okay. So
I think what you said was a great idea in that, come to a buffer. You build a buffer of safe people around you that can support you before you start seeking help from law enforcement in some more official capacity.
Yes.
Because if that child gets like the child I was talking about earlier this week, father is attacking the child, mother goes to law enforcement puts her in jail, and he gets custody of the child.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see a few of that happening in the community, and no parent, no mother is going to want to protect her child that way. What else has she got to do? Well, if her community is doing what a community is supposed to do, she's going to turn to the community, and the community will take care of it.
Mm-hmm. The closer
it doesn't happen that way.
The closer you are to the situation, the better the decisions that are made. Okay, you cannot centralize and this continued collectivism of moving things up to these vetting agencies is toxic. It's wrong, and it's got to stop because these people, you're just a number. You're just a number to them. They don't know you. Your community, hopefully, if you're engaged, hopefully you're not standing alone. And if you are, you need to start reaching out to others around you in order to build those close networks. A governor can go in and write the state pretty easily in the state of Michigan, but where it really counts is not necessarily the county, though the county counts, that's where their elections are, but it's a community, and it's even smaller than that. It's your neighborhood where you can make a real difference. We have to start thinking that the world is too big right now. We think we got to run around the globe and help everybody in all of these countries. We can't even take care of our own neighborhood, our own healthcare, all of this stuff that could easily be solved if we were actually involved and engaging on a local level. It would be easy. So with that said, how about we go ahead and play some more scripture, and let's say prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for Karen. I love Karen so much. She always comes in when she's asked, and I'm just thankful for her and her wisdom and her ability to speak truth and also help get truth out to other people. I'm thankful for Dr. Huff and all he's done for this nation, and his opinions, his expertise, his working within the system that we have, and in his wisdom. It's amazing that people are willing to come forward. And thank you for Warren Carpenter and all the fight he's doing to expose the corruption that's out there. We're so thankful that we can come to you with all of our problems, and we ask that you would shut the mouths of all the naysayers and the people that are out there doing harm, and increase goodness and righteousness, that your kingdom would be on earth as it is in heaven. Help us to find those opportunities where we can walk forward and do good to counter everything that the loser, Satan and his little minions, the losers, are fighting. We ask that you would the blood of Jesus Christ, we plead the blood of Jesus Christ over all things, protection to those people who are innocent, and exposure to those people who are evil. We ask that you expose every evil deed, that you would throw it into the light of your Son, and that we would end all this nonsense and this evil that's here. I ask that you would protect the children, that it would help people to have the discernment they need to know the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, and how to think past things that look good but perhaps aren't. Help us to have great discernment and wisdom in our walk forward. And we just want to say thank you so much for all you've done for us. You're a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. We love you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So here we go. Let's listen to some scripture, finish out the day. And remember, Jesus is here all the time. God is in control. It's God's war. He's the one that's going to win
2
this.
Corinthians 4, 8 through 9. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose.
Okay, and with that said, let's go ahead and talk about today. We're going to pick off every time Satan, the loser, and his loser minions come after us. You don't have to be afraid of them if you're in the body of Christ. We are covered by the blood of Jesus and by God's protection. When the Israelites left Egypt, they were only subject to the first 3 plagues together, and God separated them out. The wheat from the chaff, he always separates at a point in time, right? And we can trust him. He is faithful to us. We do not have to be afraid of anything or anyone except respecting him. And fearing the Lord means respecting him. That's what it means, to respect God, to live according to his commands and what he asks us to do. It's his sandbox. He made the rules. That's the way it works best. You don't run out in front of a truck knowing that a truck's going to hit you, right? And we're not going to run out in front of things that we know are going to harm us, because God's telling us, as a good father would, yeah, don't do this because it's going to lead to your destruction. You're going to have hurt if you do. That's it. He's not trying to be mean. He's trying to help you. So with that said, go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because you know what? I'm the best who has never not conceded in the history of the United States of America. I am not conceding to liars, cheats, and thieves as the governor candidate in the only 2022 election. And we're not going to stop. We've got to write the 2020 election so that the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, is in office. Is he perfect? No, but he's the perfect one for the job. And not only that, it's the American process that we uphold. We have to follow the law. They didn't follow the law, and they broke the law. And that's what deprived him of his, which he won. We're thankful for Admiral Rogers and General Flynn and all the brave people. They have put their lives on the line for this nation. We're thankful for them. And with that said, God bless you. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. We'll be back next week, and just letting you know that you are loved beyond all description. Oh, here comes Karen back on again. Looks like you got bumped there, Karen.
Yeah, I think I hit a back button by accident. Sorry.
That's okay. God bless all of you out there. In this Christmas season, Merry Christmas to all of you. Merry Christmas. And it's going to be great. It starts with not what we receive, but what we give. What are we going to give to this nation without receiving or expecting payment? That's where we're getting screwed up. Put your treasure into those things that are intangible, that have to do with honesty, virtue, valor, defending, protecting, and stepping in the gap between those who need help and the evil that's set up to destroy them. That's what we're going to do. Speaking truth always. Have a great day. We love you. It's going to be great. Make good choices. You don't have a good example, be one. See you. I'm going to be off tomorrow. I'll see you next week. And I'm not sure if it's Monday or Tuesday yet. I think I've got a meeting down in Florida again. Ooh, another meeting in Florida at the beginning of the week. But I'll let you know where I am through Telegram at Brandenburg, the number 4 MI on Telegram.